Okay,
And then you're good to go.
so I'm not doing the full call to order. I'm only doing just, okay. So call to order the meeting for the Zoning Board of Appeals for March 7th, 2024. At this time, I need a motion for the board to move into closed session.
So moved.
So moved.
Second. For
Harold seconds.
Purposes of discussing pending litigation.
We have to move into a closed session. That's why it's closed.
The vote should say that that's the purpose.
Would that it? Okay, and I have to invite you into,
Else who will be in the room.
And Matt and anybody else who will be in the room who's not on the board.
They can come through.
okay. Do I have to name anyone who's in the room
Who is not on the board.
who's not on the board? Okay. I'll ask you to declare yourselves. So let's start that again. Need a motion to move into closed session to discuss pending litigation to be attended by Attorney
Wilson Carroll from Kona Wolf. Matthew Decker, zoning enforcement officer.
Jody Karaginas, clerk. So moved.
So moved.
Chris, you got it with that?
Chris
Chris Rogers.
hiding in the corner over there.
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
Seconded by Joe. You got beat on the third one there, Harold, sorry. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I need everyone who is not on the board or has named themselves in the last moment to please leave the room. Man, of the March 7th, 2024 meeting. This time I need a motion to approve the minutes of the previous meeting. Motion to approve.
Moved.
Jane moves, second. Joe seconds. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Abstain. I wasn't present.
It's okay. Yeah, that's fine. Shouldn't have had Katie leave yet.
So,
Just four.
We need 4 to approve the minutes.
no.
Elise can do it.
Elise can
Elise can do it. Elise, take yourself off mute for me.
Hello.
Hello. Give me an aye, a yay, or a nay, please.
Aye, yes.
Aye, okay. We have 1 abstention.
Need a super majority to approve.
No, we just need. That's what I want. So it's done. We have it. We may as well use it. Okay. And second, approval of secretary's fees. I need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Jane moves. Second.
Seconded.
Second this
I'll
one.
second.
Motion is second. Any noes, abstentions? Motion carries. Welcome to the Zoning Board of Appeals. First, start with a few instructions. When a matter is first called, the applicant or his or her agent will present the case. Once the call is complete, originals of any petition should be given to our clerk, Jody. Copies of the petitions should then be distributed to the board members. After the applicant's presentation, all interested parties in favor of the application will come forward and speak. After those in favor have spoken, any opposition will be heard. The applicant or his or her agent may then address the comments made by those in opposition. It is not a time to restate your case. We're not going to relitigate a second time. We're not going to go through and do the whole argument. Address the points and the points only. I will also ask and remind everyone that we are not PZA. We are not P&Z. We are not here to hear about traffic concerns. We're not here to hear about full breadth. We are here to grant variances on the existing zoning condition. Okay. So noise, all these other things are not what we are here to hear about. Okay. Second, this meeting is being taped as required by state law. It is important that we are able to understand the tape. Therefore, only one person may speak at a time. and anyone who speaks must come forward, speak into the microphone, and give his or her name and address. We welcome the comments of all interested persons, but we will exercise discretion in making sure that your comments are on the point. And if you are too far off the point, we will reserve the right to restrict your comments at any time. As chairman, I expect decorum at all times. Sometimes these are neighbor things, sometimes these things have personal bents, what have you. Not here. Okay? Keep it to the point. Third, applicants and all interested persons may remain in attendance after the public hearing for the executive session to find out what was decided. Or you may call the zoning office tomorrow to find out what was decided. I strongly recommend anybody who has an application here to stick around, because if something goes your way, something doesn't go your way, you're going to hear the deliberations. That, however, again, is not a time for you to speak. Public hearing is the only time that you will be afforded the time to speak, and you will do so when I grant. Fourth, an application for a waiver is granted. The waiver is not valid if that notice is not recorded. The applicant must bring a check in the amount of $60 made out to the town of Fairfield to the zoning office on Wednesday or later following the meeting for proper recording of the notice of filing. Any waiver involving construction of new dwellings and additions or exterior alterations will require an as-built survey to the issuance of a certificate of zoning compliance and a certificate of occupancy. Now, one last little piece of this. As a board, we all have heartstrings, we all have considerations. We decide what we will hear. However, we are constrained by specific rules. We are here to weigh those rules, and we were all elected to weigh the rules and the existing conditions of a property against reason and against the constraints that any of those things put on your property. Proper granting of a variance is not, I have 5 kids and I need more space. It's not, I think everything will look prettier this way. It is specifically tied to your property. So the closer and more concise you can stay to, this is what the regulations or my property constrains me to, and this is why I need to ask for this variance. Some of us on this board are very, very adept at leading you towards the variance if you're not sure what it is. And you will receive questions from us that will either help or maybe answer some questions for you in the course of their asking. So just be cognizant of those questions, be cognizant of what we are here to do. Everything will move. So for those of you who may not have heard, I will state one final time that the continued docket item number 10 has been continued to the April meeting. That is 380 Pine Creek Avenue. And number 2 on the regular docket, 130 Lakeview Drive, has also been continued to the April docket. So if you are here for any business on those items, see you in April. At this time, we're going to open up the regular hearing, and it will be with number 9, 481 Riverside Drive, map 130, parcel 46, petition of 481 Riverside Drive LLC for a variance of the zoning regulation section 5.2.4 to reduce the street line setback from 30 feet, currently 37.5 feet, proposing 20.3 feet, and section 5.2.5 to increase the lot coverage from 20%, currently 17.8%, proposing 21.3%. Permission to construct a 2.5-story FEMA compliant single family dwelling. Premises is A zone. Council.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, ladies and gentlemen. For the record, my name is John Fallon. I'm here today representing the applicant, who, as the chair indicates, we seek variances with regard to street setbacks and coverage, as I'll elaborate on in a second, in order to construct a 2.5-story single-family home on the property at 481 Riverside Drive. The lot in question is located in the Residence A zone, and as shown on the survey submitted to you, it has a gross lot area of 14,647 square feet. However, the area below elevation 4.8 is 6,561 square feet, and in accordance with the provisions of section 31.2.21 of the regulations, this area must be deducted from the calculation of gross lot area. Similarly, 607 square feet is under 37.5 width, and pursuant to the provisions of section 31.2.21, that also has to be excluded. So after you deduct these areas in accordance with the regulations, your gross lot area here, or your net lot area, is 7,479 square feet, which is your buildable lot area. As you are aware, the minimum lot requirements in the zone in Residence A is 9,375 square feet. So this parcel is a legally protected, pre-existing, non-conforming lot in accordance with the provisions of Connecticut General Statutes 8-2. I'd also call your attention, as the survey shows, that the lot has an extremely unique shape, being pie-shaped to its northerly end with a long and narrow area extending to the south. The current structure on the property that we would propose to demolish if you grant these variances is non-conforming to the sum of the side yard property line setback requirements of 25 feet, being located 16.3 feet from the side property lines. The new structure that we propose will eliminate that nonconformity and conform to the sum of the setbacks of 26.1 feet. As I said, we propose to construct a 2.5-story single-family residence. The variance that we specifically request is to reduce the required street setback to 20.3 feet. And in addition, we do ask for a nominal increase in lot coverage of 0.9% to 20.9%. I want to emphasize that notwithstanding the substantial nonconformity of the lot at 7,479 square feet, this variance that we request for coverage is only 0.9%, and we seek no variance with regard to the floor area ratio requirements. We revised our application after consideration to address that, so that even though what we are proposing is on a lot that's some 1,600 square feet less than what your zoning regulations contemplate, we will comply with the 40% coverage requirement. Otherwise, the proposed home will comply with all other provisions of the regs. So let's talk about the law and some of the facts that are relevant to that. As you know, under section 8-6A3, two conditions have to be satisfied for the granting of the variance. One, that what is proposed will not substantially affect the comprehensive zoning plan. And number two, there are factors affecting the lot which establish legal hardship as our case law defines it. With regard to the first aspect of the test, I cite at page 2 of my material the Egan case, which states that if the use to be allowed by a variance is a permitted use in the zone and or is similar to other uses in the area, then that first part of the test is met. In this instance, the granting of the variance requested will not change the use of the lot, which will remain for a single-family residence as explicitly permitted in the zone. Other than the variances requested for new construction, being the street setback variance and the coverage variance, all other provisions of the regulations will be complied with, and the proposed structure has been professionally, architecturally designed, is attractive and harmonizes with the character of the neighborhood, and we feel will have a very positive aesthetic impact with regard to the property. And you've received some letters to that effect from various neighbors indicating that fact. We've also submitted, I don't think you need these, if you do, I can give them to you, but they were submitted online. Neighbor petitions that have been signed by numerous neighbors on Riverside Drive, all supporting the application. The board has these, correct?
Correct.
So I won't burden you with more paper. So I think that is also indicative of compliance with the first part of the test. The other thing, since the first part of the test looks to, is whether or not what you're proposing is consistent with the neighborhood. I want to provide you some other material that I think is significant. And I did ask, and Ms. Dillon was nice enough to do this. This has been submitted online, so I know we have a commissioner joining us online, so she'll be able to see this as well. We took the time to examine homes on Riverside Drive having less than a 30-foot street line setback. And that is what this document depicts. I'm not going to read these to you. I think if I did, most of the other folks waiting for their matters to be heard would groan and throw me out the door. But I do ask you to take careful consideration of them. You can see the number. You can see their proximity to the subject. And you can see how varied they are from the 30-foot setback requirement. What does this mean? This means that Riverside Drive was substantially developed prior to the adoption of the current zoning regulations. And the pattern of development of this neighborhood, as it relates to many factors, including the street line setback, is apparent. The other thing that we did was, and it's less of a consideration now because we are complying with the FAR requirement, but to the extent there's any question about the compatibility of our proposed property in terms of the square footage of the homes, we also took the time to analyze homes on or immediately adjacent to the Riverside Drive neighborhood and what their square footages were and their lot areas were. Again, I'm not going to read this to you, but I would hope that you would consider, again, the fact that the house we propose is quite consistent in its size with other homes in the area. More importantly, I would say to you, it is consistent and compliant with your own zoning regulations. The last thing we did, and I will share with you, is we examined all of the, and I would say more recent, last 15 years, variances that were granted on Riverside Drive for either coverage or street line setback, okay? I have a summary sheet I'm going to give you with regard to that, but if I have your permission, I'll give the copies of the original notices of filing to the clerk, so they'll be part of the record. I noted in that time frame 9 variances, as I'll show you in a minute, that were granted for coverage, 7 variances that were granted for street line, and 9 variances that were granted for both setback and coverage. Again, my purpose in showing you this is not to say, uh-oh, you've got a precedent situation here. Each and every one of your applications, you decide on its merits individually. But what I am offering this for is to again show that in accordance with the provisions of the zoning of the statute, we have here a situation that what we propose is consistent with other uses in the area. This is a summary of those documents that I've just provided. You'll see that our coverage variance being nominal at 20.9% compares very favorably to the nature of coverage variances that have been granted in the immediate neighborhood in the recent past by the board with respect to coverage. Similarly, With regard to the street setback, the same point is offered for your consideration. We do seek a street setback reduction to 20.3 feet. And again, we feel that this documentation shows consistency of that request with the pattern of usage and development in the neighborhood. The second part of the test, as you know, and as the chair indicated in his opening remarks, is you have to find that there is particular characteristic of the property recognized by our case law to establish a basis of hardship for purposes of granting the variances. There are two factors in our case, which is a matter of law, allow you to make this finding of hardship in this case. I cite the Stillman case in my material, where the state Supreme Court recognizes that the unique configuration of a lot provides a proper basis for a finding of hardship for purposes of granting a variance. This lot, I would submit, as you look at the screen, obviously qualifies for such hardship consideration based upon its shape, which is, as previously referenced, extremely pie-shaped at its northerly point with an extreme narrow area extending southerly. The shape of the lot directly implicated and limits the ability to site the house without relief from the 30-foot setback. Most importantly, we, meaning the applicant, most carefully considered the location of the new dwelling in order to ensure that by moving the house towards the street, as we propose it, it was possible to address and eliminate the side setback nonconformities on both sides of the property, thus having a significant benefit to the neighboring properties adjacent to ours. By locating the house as we propose it, we're able to conform to the sum of the side yard requirements and eliminate the nonconformity. And I'll speak more about the legal implications of that in a minute. It should also be noted, as I've said, that there are many, many houses, as I've documented, on this street immediately in the area that are also similarly nonconforming to the 30-foot setback requirement, either by pre-existence or by variances granted by the board. With regard to the coverage variance, again, there's case law that I cite on page 4, actually page 5 of my material, where our Supreme Court has held that if the lot in question is a valid and legally protected nonconforming lot, that creates a proper basis for a finding of hardship for purposes of granting a variance for coverage. As I've said, this lot, under your regulations, has a lot area of 7,479 square feet, 9,375 square feet is required. Statute recognizes that this is a pre-existing non-conforming lot, and the courts have found that where the property is such a valid non-conforming lot, sufficient hardship to justify the granting of a variance for coverage is established. And that is in those cases, Scobie, Kelly, and Dolan that I cite. Lastly, I cite at page 5 of my material an additional proper legal basis for the granting of variances in this case, which is established by the well-settled legal authority that the elimination of an existing nonconformity provides a proper independent legal basis for the granting of a variance. In the present case, for the reasons that we located the house as we did, we are eliminating the current nonconformity of the sum of the side yard setbacks, which are presently 16.3 feet, making them compliant, making that the new house compliant at 26.1 feet. And as Hescock and Vine and those other cases that I cite point out, that provides the board an independent legal basis for the granting of the variances. So here you have not only two classic hardship bases, the shape of the lot and its non-conforming status as to lot area, but you also have the Hescock and Vine and the other cases that I cite, which make it relevant and controlling that we are in fact eliminating nonconformities. So, breadth, in summary, the new single-family residence, as we propose it, is attractive in design, harmonizes with the character of the neighborhood. It's consistent with other street and coverage situations that exist in the immediate area as a matter of pre-existence or variance is granted. We believe, and many of our neighbors have so indicated, that they believe that it will provide a significant architectural enhancement to the property that will benefit the surrounding neighborhood. I believe we've established legal hardship based upon the factors I discussed, the shape of the lot and its non-conforming status as to lot area. And in addition, by working to eliminate the existing nonconformities with regard to the sum of the side yard setbacks, we provide an independent basis under Vine and Hescock for the granting of the variances that we request. At the end of the day, the variance for coverage is 0.9%, even though the lot is so diminished in square footage. And the setback from the street is consistent with the immediate area. And we believe will yield ultimately a much nicer home benefiting the neighborhood. And we seek no variance for floor area ratio. So in terms of size and bulk, we will comply with the existing regulation and ask for no relief, notwithstanding the undersized lot in question. Please answer any questions you might have.
Does the board have any questions? Jane, go ahead.
Is this a different submission than what was,
Originally,
because the numbers that are looked on our
it's different.
call sheet are different than what's.
The original application, I think, appeared on your docket in January.
Yeah,
We were seeking an FAR variance
right.
as part of that. When we determined to delay the matter, we thought that through. We know very candidly the board's understandable sensitivity to FAR variances, notwithstanding undersized lots. So we determined that we would modify the design to eliminate certain areas of living area so that we could present you with a compliant application with regard to coverage and that, FAR, and that is what's before you today. So there has been some adjustment.
Yeah, because what we all see is.
21.3%.
Now it's 20.9, and you also see, I forget what the FAR variance was. It was certainly over 40, but it's not. And I would say, without being self-serving towards my clients, I think that says a good thing about this applicant's approach of constructive consideration of the board. Because again, anyone who works with this board recognizes, as I said, that you have an understandable concern about FAR variances because of what they often import in terms of size and bulk. So after consideration, we did make it a priority to revise the application while pending to eliminate any such requests.
So you went back and sharpened the pencil and,
Yes, we did.
so you could have sharpened the pencil to get it below 20% as well.
Well, that's a very difficult thing because, you know, you can only push the envelope so far. And I can tell you, we looked hard at that. We really did, because strategically, you know, Commissioner, why not? If you're going to get rid of the FAR, get rid of the coverage. But we really felt that we couldn't do that, you know, on a lot of different levels in terms of trying to maintain the functionality of the house. It seems small, but again, in looking at the elements of hardship that support a coverage variance here because of the underside nature of the lot, the nature of the neighborhood itself, other variances that have been granted for coverage, not to mean that, you know, you've got a precedent issue here. We determined that the 20.9 and the elimination of the FAR was a reasonable request to bring to you. We wouldn't have brought that request to you if it wasn't supported by legal hardship, which we think it is. So
Difference of like 167 square feet.
I'm not the architect you are, but I was told it created a problem.
Okay, any other questions? The board? Okay, hearing none. Is there anyone in the room wishing to speak in favor of this application? One online? Hearing none, seeing none. Is there anyone in the room who wishes to speak in opposition to this application?
These came in opposition.
Okay. So just give us 1 second. It's okay, I'll share with Jane.
Do you have an extra copy of this so I don't have to take the chairs?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Mrs. Gardner. It's on the camera right now.
So we'll hold on to these. So this is what I'm gonna do. I am going to have those present and speaking go first. We'll give them the attention and then we will turn our attention to what has been written and what's been given to us second, okay?
The second handout is coming from.
The second handout is coming from the person presenting now, yes. So need your full name, address, and then go ahead.
Good afternoon, Chairman and board members. My name is Jennifer Gainer. My address is 461 Riverside Drive, right next to the property in question right now. And if you notice, I have two documents here. One I will read. It is just my letter to the board and the reasons why I'm opposing the two variances. And on the right-hand side here, I have photos that will be referred to within my letter, if that's okay. And I really apologize for killing so many trees. So my husband, son, and I live at 461 Riverside Drive for 8 years, next door to 481. This property, as it relates to my home, is on a small, awkward pie-shaped lot that is angled directly into my backyard. It is also on the S curve of a very dangerous cut-through street between Bridgeport and the beach area. Neighbors have had many complaints to the town and attempts to get speed bumps on this portion of the road because of hazardous speeding issue to no avail. I may have just made your case describing the pie-shaped awkward lot, but thank you for continuing to indulge me. Riverside is home to young families and small children and retirees. It boasts the most ethnically diverse families in the beach area. It's still relatively affordable for Fairfield and aesthetically not ostentatious. As new builders have come along, they have been respectful of the character of the neighborhood, keeping homes in line with front setbacks of neighboring homes, not overbuilding edge to edge on properties, and not obscenely towering over neighboring properties. Most importantly, not maxing out the allowable height or setbacks. This area maintains a distinctly different character from the central Fairfield Beach area. On pages 1 and 2 of this document, you will see the direct neighboring homes lined up and down the street. This will also show you new builds around that area as well. And what basically the difference in height between what's existing in the new builds and what this property is going to be on pages 1 and 2. We are objecting to the variances to this project for the following reasons. First is traffic safety hazard and line of sight obstruction. Moving this home forward on the lot and expanding its footprint is a safety issue and will obstruct the view of cars speeding around the corner, posing an additional hazard as myself and my neighbors back out of our driveways. They're asking for significantly reduced setback of 20.4 feet. Currently, the home is 37.5 feet away from the road. You can see via the Google Earth exhibit that I have in here and photos that I took on page 3 and 4. With a teenage son coming up on driving age, I think we all can appreciate the need for unobstructed views of speeding cars. Currently, the bamboo that is between this property and the next property over, I know that's been cited as a potential obstruction. I can honestly say that that bamboo is not an obstruction to view of traffic from me because I can actually see movement through that bamboo. I have another photo in here that actually shows somebody coming around the corner, speeding around, and what I can see and what I won't be able to see once the house comes up. The second is towering height in relation to the front setback and the neighbors. The looming height of this home in comparison to the other homes and new builds is out of scale with the neighborhood and will be oppressive if located just 20.4 feet from the sidewalk at almost 40 feet to the peak of this house. I know the attorney had a list of other homes with setbacks that were less than 30 feet, mine included. However, it is the only property on this dangerous curve. So the other setbacks that are pushed back are all in line and therefore not causing any view issues. This one is particularly unique because it is on that curved lot. It's out of scale with the neighborhood. You can reference pages 5 and 6 in here. The applicant is raising the first floor to 15.65 feet, which is 3 feet above the town's requirement of 12 feet above sea level. Then architected the max height of 2.5 stories, going to the max of 30 feet 4 inches height restriction at the midline, which also makes this an anomaly in the neighborhood. This is only one home there is only one other home at 227 Turney Road near the entry of the marina that has done all of that. However, that one is not as close to the street. It's impinging on our privacy without reasonable remedy. And if you look at reference page 7 and 8, this home will also tower over our backyard, being angled directly into it because of the unique angle of the property. At 40 feet to the peak, and with our small sized property, we cannot plant trees big enough to provide a privacy barrier between the homes. The home's first floor deck will be within feet from my fence top, while the balconies and roof deck will tower over our yard. Another reason we are objecting to the variances, we believe they're overbuilding on the lot. If you reference page 9 in here, the proposed lot and lot coverage on this awkwardly shaped piece of land is exacerbating the issue. While they are not asking for significant percentage over what's allowable, it will be significantly bigger than what is there now. Again, making this structure feel overscaled on this property, going from 17.8% to 20.9% lot coverage. At one point in January, they scaled the home up to 3,300 square feet. However, they just reduced the square footage to 2,963 square feet. They did so by adding a dormer and adjusting the roof line slightly as to not count a fair amount of the top level. This did nothing to reduce the overall 46 wide, 40-foot high dimension of the home. I was told this was done to avoid the burden of getting the third variance that they originally applied for. Look at page 9, I believe it is. You can see the only difference in that in the plan from January to now, when it was 3,300 square feet, is the top roof line in the center. I would also say it's questionably within the spirit of the 2.5 floor regulation. Please reference page 10 for that. Half of the house looks like it's a full 3-story or 4-story, depending on if you count the bottom level for FEMA. The roof on the right is more aesthetic to allow for lower midline height. This midline height, it's at the max allowable height of 34 and 4 inches. but 3 sides of the home are designed with a full 3rd story. Those roof lines are far higher. This part of the structure to the east is not a dormer. There isn't one big roof for the home that a half of a story resides under. It's an illusion to allow the top floor to far exceed the allowable maximum height, almost at 40 feet. And it gets 3 stories, or 4 if you count the 9-foot floor, ground floor. With this design, should the midline be calculated higher? Should this house be shorter to conform to the max height and true spirit of the half-story regulation? Should the top floor be architected so that there isn't an entire floor constructed above the midline? This home looks like it's towering and looming more than the others in the neighborhood because all the rest have a roof line over the whole house, and that half-story sits below it, normally with gables or dormers. This features a full squared off floor on top, built to exceed the max height allowable. And lastly, the character is not harmoniously in keeping with the neighborhood. The aesthetic of this home is simply not keeping with the character of the neighborhood. It's completely out of proportion in footprint, placement on the land, height, lack of attention to detail of design, and 2 enormous turrets, which will make this monster the eyesore of the neighborhood. What speaks volumes are the signatures in the surrounding area that the applicant did not get. I know there were multiple neighbors that strongly opposed this build for many of these same reasons, but did not come to this meeting because they intend to go before this board in the future for modest improvements on their homes, but rightly or wrongly feared bias since the applicant is a board member. The applicant is an investor and spec builder. She can build a home at any size on this street and attract a buyer, as did builders who bought 879, 464, 716, and it will sell for a profit. I know this board deals with a legal definition of hardship as it relates to your statutes. However, if we think about the colloquial definition of hardship, meaning severe suffering, I am not sure that a realtor investor who set out to build a 3,000 plus square foot home, yet still chose to purchase one of the smallest, most awkward pieces of land on the street would qualify. All this case law that the applicant cites shouldn't negate the fact that she was well aware that what she wanted to build, whether on this lot or another one, was not appropriate for this lot. Her application states that moving the location of the house to conform to the side yard setbacks would benefit the abutting neighbors. I assure you, shifting a 40-foot tall home 7 feet forward or 7 feet back does not alleviate the lack of privacy we're going to have. By denying the 20-foot, 4-inch reduction of the setback on a sharp curve will make a difference for our ability to see speeding cars around the dangerous corner. Believe me, I love progress, as Katie O'Grady has called it. I have renovated and flipped 7 homes myself. However, I hope we can consider a standard in this town where we don't allow builders and investors to overbuild on land, drop a big giant box devoid of character on a street, and disregard how it will impact safety and livelihood of a growing and thriving neighborhood, just to have them run away with a huge pile of cash and leave an eyesore behind. We're asking to deny the variances due to hazardous traffic obstruction, oppressive height so close to the street, the home being overscaled on the property, and out of character for the neighborhood, lack of privacy without remedy, and the appearance of exceeding max height with a full top story. Requiring the investor to build a more size and scale appropriate home on this lot at a reasonable setback for the corner lot will still allow her to attain her singular goal of flipping this house for profit. So what you will also notice here at the bottom is there are neighbors who may be on the call right now, who did not want to speak. They shared the same sentiments, so they just signed down at the bottom here. This is a different list of those who are actually in the room to object to this as well. So I believe on top of myself and my husband, I have 6 homes in the direct neighborhood, in the direct vicinity, that also share these sentiments. I want to thank you very much for your time. Thank you.
Anyone else in the room? We'll start within the room. Want to speak in opposition to this? Right ahead. Full name, address, the whole 9 yards.
My name is Mark Seaver. I live at 25 Concord Street, which is just one street down from where the proposed property develops. I'm not an immediate neighbor, but I will be able to see the property from my backyard. Currently, there's a long strip of bamboo that sits there right now, which for me is a nice privacy screen. I love it. And as to the safety issue that might have been brought up earlier about the bamboo in terms of people not being able to see as they're driving by, I know the bamboo's been cut back. It's easy to address that as a safety issue. It's not as easy to address a house that's 20 feet from the street as a safety issue there. So if the bamboo comes down, I will see this huge structure from my backyard and from my garage where I work on a daily basis. So with that preamble, let me just say, I'm happy the lot is bought. Like the existing structure on this property right now has been an eyesore for many years. It's a blight for the street, so I'm glad the lot has been bought and something is being developed. I'm not in the habit of opposing new builds. In fact, I'm very much in favor of it, but I am sympathetic to the owner who does admit that this is an odd shaped lot. And my objection is not to the development of it, but is to the scale at which they're developing it. And I would like to see more effort taken to scale down the structure to fit the unusual size of the lot. Now, they'll say they have done this already. Jane, you mentioned this before. If you sharpened your pencil once to scale down the structure, couldn't you sharpen your pencil again and scale it down to fall within the current 20-foot restriction or below the 20% restriction? Let me just touch on a couple of things that Mrs. Gaynor already touched on. Technically, this is a 2.5-story property, but visually it will appear as a 4-story property. From the ground floor all the way to the roof line, this will look like a 4-story property. It has 4 living levels on it. It also has a roof deck. This is an extremely tall property. Pushing this property even closer to the street is not going to help anybody. In fact, the current structure is, as already stated, 38 feet from the road. The new structure would be 20 feet, so you're actually cutting the distance in half with a structure 4 times the height of the current structure. As to the look and the height of the structure, it does not, I lived in this neighborhood for 10 years. I walk it every day with my dog. I'm an avid biker, runner. I've seen all the properties out there for 10 years. This property does not fit with this neighborhood. Sorry. Does not. It is not attractive in design either. I know that's highly subjective, but there's a lot of people that would agree with that statement. But it definitely is not consistent with the existing aesthetic of the neighborhood. The one thing it does remind me of is the massive estate that went up on 227 Turney. As you go into Jennings Beach there, the new property on the left, which is a giant 4-story property. But as was said earlier, it is farther back from the road, but it does appear to be much out of character with the existing neighborhood. This particular structure would remind me of that. Now, I know that the owner has submitted some examples of other homes that have been granted variance for the 30-foot setback. I would ask the board to review that carefully for other homes that are at this scale that would be underneath the 30-foot setback. I really believe that the scale of this home pushed farther to the street line is really going to be an imposing sort of structure. It's not going to fit in. Let me just mention a couple of other things. One, I would just also, encourage the board to take a look at the pictures that Mrs. Gaynor submitted, where she has superimposed the structure into the neighborhood on the lot next to her property. compared to some of the other properties. That's a very powerful set of pictures where you get a feel of the difference in size and scale of this. The other issue I would like to highlight is the safety issue. So there are a number of new drivers just directly next to this property. A number of families, my own daughters, I have two daughters who just turned 16, they're going to be drivers, but I do agree that with new drivers backing out into that very dangerous curve there, where we know that a lot of drivers, instead of going through the rotary around the McDonald's there, instead of, risking, being caught by the police there, they'll reroute through the residential area down Riverside and they'll speed down that street. I would estimate we have cars going 45 miles an hour around that corner. It's a very dangerous corner. And we do have a number of new drivers in other neighboring homes that will be backing out. So let me just stop there and say, I'm not in the habit of opposing these sorts of things. In fact, I lived in Atlanta for 12 years. I'm used to monumental structures going up in subdivisions all the time. I'm in favor of it, but in this particular case, I do believe that this structure does not fit the lot. And I would really ask the owner to take a second attempt to provide a revised version of the structure that appropriately fits the lot, that will still give them a good return on their investment, would also be at a scale that fits the current look and feel of the neighborhood, and would not be as stark and objective a structure as some of these neighborhoods have already testified. So thank you.
Anyone else in the room?
My letter is.
I haven't gotten there yet. Anyone online wish to speak? Hearing none, the board's going to take about 2 minutes to review the letter that was submitted. Just read through it. Anyone else need a minute? Council, have you had sufficient time to review? Okay, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to answer the questions of the opposition.
Summarize.
Couple of minutes to answer the opposition in summary.
In summary, all right. So let me take them in pretty much the order that we heard from the speakers and the letters. There's talk about maxing out the property. And again, I would just emphasize for purposes of your consideration and the record, we seek no variance here for FAR. We are compliant with the regulations as it relates to FAR. There are comments that were made about the towering height. Again, for the record and for your consideration, we seek no variance for height. We are compliant with your regulations. The elevation that is referred to is consistent with all beach development and is because we are in the FEMA zone and we have to comply with FEMA. We are compliant with your regulations as it relates to a 2-story structure. This is a, 2.5-story structure. So that, all of those things do not resonate. We believe that eliminating the side yard setback nonconformity is a goal that should be achieved. The case law, Hescock, says that's what you should be striving for. And clearly, with regard to adjacent property owners, compliance with the sum of the setbacks is in fact something that should be desired and encouraged. There's a lot of comments by these speakers who are obviously entitled to their position, that what we're doing is not in character or keeping with the neighborhood, is going to have an adverse impact with the neighborhood.
Excuse me for a moment. Just gonna.
John.
What's up? Matt? Matt.
Sorry.
The fact of the matter is, as the petitions that have been submitted indicate, most neighbors don't agree with that. And in fact, even some of the speakers here today, and we appreciate candor, indicates that the property that is presently constituted is an eyesore. There's again, all this questions about scaling down the house, scaling it back further. It complies with FAR. Now, the fact is, and this is something that we prepared, and I want to make it part of the record. The one point that was made that unconfirmed should raise your interest is sightline obstruction and safety. I submit for the record a map prepared by Land Surveying Services, which shows, and I'm going to leave this with you, obviously, that we asked them to prepare a sightline drawing, just as we would submit to planning and zoning, okay? Because we had talked to some neighbors, we were sensitive to that confirmed, we want everybody to be safe. The document speaks for itself. The road may be on a curve, but as you can see, the location of our house at 20.3 feet back from the setback from the road in no way inhibits the sight line here. So I want you to take that and take that with you to your work session, because the one thing that was said that should be important is a safety issue that's going to obstruct people's reasonable views. That may have been said in good faith or not. But the fact of the matter is, the documentation on this A2 survey indicates this house, as proposed, will have absolutely no impact on the sightline. So we are where we started. We have a lot that everybody admits is probably as unique of a broom that you've seen in a long time. Its shape is unique. It is a pre-existing non-conforming lot with respect to lot area. We are eliminating the non-conformity that exists with regard to the side yard setbacks. We have eliminated any request for an FAR variance relative to questions about scale, et cetera, et cetera. We have limited our request for a coverage variance to 0.9%, and we seek no other variances. And we have substantial support in the neighborhood so as to eliminate this eyesore. An eyesore that, as located, will not in any way obstruct, as a matter of safety, anybody's sight lines as they travel down Riverside. So in the spirit of the chair asking me to be brief, that's my rebuttal, that's my summary. We hope you'll keep your eyes, as you always do, on the law and the facts. And if you do, we'd ask you to approve this application. And I thank you for your time and your patience.
Pierre, did you get the emails that I forwarded you?
Yes. So I'll simply state their existence for the record, that we did receive letters in approval or in support of this application, and that those letters have been submitted into the record and reviewed by the commission. With that, close the hearing on this item. Now move on to our regularly scheduled programming. General docket number 1.
1 second, Mr. Chairman. You have to bring Mr. Grady back.
Oh, Commissioner Oncle. Is Chris going to get Katie?
I'm gonna call her right now. It's on our way down.
Okay.
Chair, just as a little bit of housekeeping, just for your sake, number 4 is online.
He's online. Okay. I'll make sure I look there. So. Jesus. Welcome back, Commissioner. Okay. We're now going to start with number 1, 253 Reading Road, map 225, parcel 37, petition of Deirdre M. Daly and Alfred U. Pavlis for a variance of the zoning regulation, section 5.2.4, to reduce the street line and sideline setbacks from 60 and 30 feet, currently 20.3 feet and 10.5 feet, proposing 29.2 feet and 14.5 feet. Permission to remove the existing single-family dwelling and construct a new 2-story single-family dwelling. Premises is AAA zone. Name, address, and all the wonderful.
Thank you. I'm David Barker, architect based in Stockport, with so many people around. And I'm here representing Deirdre Daly and Al Pavlis, and Al Pavlis is here for this. The modest residence on the property at 253 Reading Road was built before zoning existed in Fairfield. The deteriorated framing, an awkward layout, and a moldy, leaky basement prompt the current owners to rebuild the structure to make it slightly while also making the building more zoning compliant. The application proposes to push it farther from the street and the adjacent neighbor's property line, while wetlands on the north, south, and west sides limit the ability to push it further. And the current house, as mentioned, is 20.3 feet from the street. We are proposing to push it back to almost 30 feet, 29.2 feet. And it currently is a mere 10.5 feet from the north property line and wetlands. And we are proposing to push it, to increase that to 14.5 feet, which would be the same distance that it would be from the wetlands. A new septic system was previously designed and approved and is assumed as part of the current layout. And a copy of that was submitted. There is a diminutive barn on the rear of the property that located next to the farm field. And as you can see on the site plan, Reading Road is on the right. And you can see that most of the property along Reading Road is now wetlands. Both the barn structure and the house are quite diminutive in scale. The minimum size house that zoning would approve on this property is 1,500 square feet. And the proposed house is 2 bedrooms and is just a little over this at 1,800 square feet. So that the FAR, this is the lot size here is 2.65 acres, I should say. And the FAR that we're proposing is 2.3% relative to 15%, which is allowable. So that the variance that we're requesting is actually to make the new structure less zoning non-compliant than currently exists. I think that's it.
Okay. Board have any questions? No questions heard from the board. Is there anyone here to speak in favor of the application, either in the room or online? Hearing none, seeing none. Is anyone here to speak in opposition to the application? Here or online? Just look for lag. Hearing none, seeing none, I'll close the application. You're all set.
Thank you for your
Thank you.
consideration.
Number 2 on our docket, 130 Lakeview Drive, has been continued. Number 3 on our general docket, 338 Commerce Drive, map 80, parcel 94, petition of CDR 328 LLC and CDR Properties LLC for a variance of the zoning regulation section 13.2 to increase the maximum setback of 18 feet from 25.75 feet Commerce Drive and 24.71 feet on Holly Court, proposing 55 feet from Commerce Drive and 67.64 feet from Holly Court in section 13.3A to allow off-street parking to be allowed between a public street and the frontage of a building, permission to construct an automobile dealership premises D1 zone. Is that D1 or DI these days? DI zone. Deference to Roman numerals. Okay, counsel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board, members of the public. For the record, my name is John Fallon. I'm pleased to be here representing the applicant tonight. With me is Mr. Jeb Belize, seated in the first row, who is the president of the Belize Auto Group, which is the party in interest here in terms of the establishment of this beautiful dealership. Also with me is Mr. Jeff Casey, facilities for the Belize Auto Group. I'll take the. Thank you. So I'll just put this here. This is, you have, I think, most. rendering as well. So as the call indicates, we are seeking the variances that I'll discuss with you, section 13.12, to increase the maximum street setback from 18 feet on Commerce Drive and Haley Court. This is a somewhat unusual situation insofar as when the transit-oriented development district was established a few years ago, there was an establishment of a maximum setback. The purposes of which obviously was to encourage streetscapes in that zone. I would, for reasons I'll discuss momentarily, I would submit to you, I don't believe that regulation establishing a maximum setback was established with car dealerships such as what we proposed in mind. Similarly, at that time, they adopted section 13.13A, which limited off-street parking between the public street and the frontage of the building. And we are asking for some relief from that as well. The whole purpose of this is, if you want to leave the rendering, put the rendering back up there for a second, thank you, Matt, is to facilitate the construction of a new Genesis automobile sales and service facility at this location, replacing a number of dilapidated structures that frankly, from an aesthetic and functional standpoint, contribute little to the area. The new dealership is going to be, we think, a very attractive addition to the Commerce Drive area. This dealership will be a significant benefit to the economic vitality of the area and the town as a whole. We anticipate 12 additional full-time jobs will be created for the current Genesis Lexus team. And in addition, 10 new employees will be hired along to work with the Belize Hyundai, which, as you know, is immediately adjacent to these parcels. We believe very much that bringing this prestigious automobile dealership, luxury dealership to Commerce Drive will be an important another step in the continued vitalization of that area. And we are proud that the Economic Development Commission, who we made a presentation before about a month ago, has seen fit to endorse our project. And I believe they've submitted a letter which you have in support of the application. As I said before, the property is located in the Design Industrial District and is part of the Commerce Drive Area Design District as well, as shown on the survey. And as you can see, the lot in question is a corner lot bounded by Commerce Drive to the north and Haley Avenue to the east. As I said, the new facility was designed with one overriding principle in mind, and that was one that the Belize Auto Group brings to each one of its facilities, as does Genesis, and that is to ensure the safe and convenient vehicle circulation for service and sales customers for both the Genesis dealership and the Hyundai dealership. Indeed, when the Hyundai dealership was established, I think approximately 5 years ago, you did grant a similar variance with regard to allowing a greater setback in order to establish that facility, including the sales facility. And again, I think that's indicative of the fact that the regulations that we're looking at now, which were adopted as part of the Commerce Drive overlay, I think we're focused on retail and other uses and not automobile dealerships. But in any event, we come to this with a commitment to convenience and safety for our customers, as well as aesthetic enhancement. And we couldn't achieve what we need to in terms of that safety and proper circulation without the relief that we seek from these two regulations. Indeed, Genesis establishes its own requirements for dealerships, and they require vehicle entrances and exits on each side of the building to support the different functions of the dealership. So again, after careful consideration, working with Genesis and our town officials, we thoughtfully determined to locate the building as proposed to ensure compliance with what we feel is necessary safety and vehicle circulation. Just to sort of emphasize who we are, the commitment we have to Fairfield, and how we approach the design of this particular facility. I'd like to call on Jeb Belize to just give you a few overview comments with regard to those matters. Jeb, thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeb Belize. I'm president of Belize Motor Sales.
Address just for the record. We just need to-
Yep, New Hampshire, Prospect Avenue in West Springfield, Massachusetts.
Thank you.
Really, it looks simple when we look at it now, but this was really months of really honing and trying. It's a compact property and it involves demolition, partial demolition of one building and then three other separate buildings being demolished. And we actually spent a lot of time with the orientation of the building towards commerce. And what happened was every time we tried to drive it and use our obviously computer programs, it was confusing to customers. And we finally went back to Genesis and said, we've got to turn this building and have it oriented towards Haley to make it convenient for the customers. When we did that, it actually really worked. And it worked not only for the customers, but also all the things that happen around dealerships where people try to cut through and use shortcuts. It really worked from a safety standpoint. And that's really what we're proposing is the safest, most practical use of the property for the dealership business, as well as an enhancement to that neighborhood in terms of what's there now. That'll answer that questions or turn to John.
Thank you very much. So again, turning to the legal standards that you apply pursuant to Connecticut General Statutes 8-6A3, look for two things: whether or not what is proposed will have any adverse impact in terms of substantial effect on the comprehensive zoning plan, and whether or not there are factors with regard to the parcels in question that establish hardship for purposes of granting a variance as recognized by the case law. I cite, as I often do, the Egan case that says that if the use to be made of the property is consistent with other uses in the area and or is a permitted use, then that in and of itself satisfies the first part of the test. The contemplated use of this property for this automobile dealership is a permitted use in the zone. And as you know, automobile dealerships are in fact very, very prominent in this immediate area of Commerce Drive. So that the proposed use, we believe, is in fact consistent with those uses in the area. I would also point out, if you do a little analysis, as I did, that, and I guess it's apropos of the fact that these regulations weren't really adapted with a focus on automobile dealerships. But as to the variances we seek for allowing a greater setback than 18 feet and allowing some limited parking between the building and the street for display and customer. If you go down Commerce Drive where we are and you look at the Audi dealership, you look at the Porsche dealership, you look at the old SCAP dealership, you look at the Mercedes-Benz dealership, they're all consistent with our request. All of them are set back at a greater distance than 18 feet, and all of them do have some provision for some display and or customer parking at that location. And I think that's relevant, again, to the first part of the test, which is whether or not anything that is proposed is going to be inconsistent with the character of development in the neighborhood. With regard to the hardship requirement, the crucial and controlling legal fact in this case, as it relates to our request, is that the property is a corner lot bounded by Haley Court to the east and Commerce Drive to the south. Our case law, as I cited in my material, the Archibald case is well settled that a proper basis for hardship concerning the granting of a variance involving the street line or street line setbacks is established when the property in question is such a corner lot and therefore subject to the application of the street line setback requirements on two sides. This lot qualifies for that consideration with regard to the matter. with specific comment with regard to the variance we seek pursuant to section 1313A. It should be pointed out, as I've said, that this particular regulation uniquely affects automobile dealerships, where obviously customer parking as a matter of convenience and safety and limited display in front of the building is essential and of standard procedure. So we hope that you would agree that in terms of the legal standards that apply here, we are certainly qualified, have qualified. We're very excited about this. Without speaking for him, I think the town, not only your Economic Development Commission and Commissioner, but other people in town are very excited about this. Genesis is obviously a prestigious, addition. They are here now, but by making this commitment to this facility, both as a matter of economics and general vibrancy, everybody's very excited about it. We've designed a facility that, as Mr. Blees says, functionally works very well, is very safe, consistent with the streetscape of the area, consistent with our brother or sister car dealerships in the community. And from your standpoint, though, most importantly, we think the lot, being the corner lot, does establish the proper basis for granting some relief from this rather unique and newly adopted maximum setback, which you did grant a variance for previously for Hyundai, and also for the allowance of some utilization of the area in the front of the building for limited parking, for display and customer convenience. So that's our presentation, and we hope you might be as excited about this as we are.
Anyone on the board? Jane, and recognize Jane first, of course.
Just to clarify, this is for zoning variance, but are you going to have to go to P and Z for use, a change of use as well?
And a special permit and a site plan.
So that's in the future.
That comes if you are good enough to grant variances. But-
Harold?
Wait, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So the use that it's under now is what?
Well, it hasn't been, I don't know what, there are like five sort of, not too, well, I don't know what's been used for. I guess
The antique dealer that moved out during COVID that was on the corner. We own the park.
It's junk.
Yes.
Before that, it was
So let's
building materials.
keep it with.
Yes.
so. There'll be a change of use, but because of the new construction, there'll also be a special permit and site plan.
Harold?
You mentioned there would be demolition of some buildings. Where are those located?
We can actually show you that. I'm gonna, Jeff or Jeff, could you come forward and using whichever you want? Maybe Matt, that you should have these if you wanna, do you wanna use the site plan? Or-
Jeff Casey, 13 Carriage Lane, Westfield, Massachusetts.
Is that here too, Jeff?
Oh, sorry. Director of Facilities for Belize. So on this plan, we can submit this to the board. This is basically an overlay of the site plan. Don't mind, I'm gonna bring it a little closer.
Thank you.
Yep. So this is the proposed dealership here, and the hatching are the existing buildings. So this is a portion of the building that's attached to the existing Hyundai building that will be demolished. This is 328 Commerce, 316, and then 47 Haley Court. So in total, it's 1, 2, 3, essentially 4 buildings that would come down.
Including the buildings on Haley Court.
There's really only one building that has an address on Haley Court, but Haley Court is right here, yes. Yep.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions on the board? Joe, go ahead.
Just to clarify, the hardship is the fact that the property is on 2 streets.
It's on a corner, it's a corner lot, so it's subject to that street setback requirement on 2 sides. And also the 1313A, which talks about limiting parking in the front of the building and between the streets. So they're faced with that on 2 sides also. Yes.
Okay. Anyone in the room wish to speak in favor of the application or online?
You do have the letter from Economic Development, right? I have copies, but I think that they submit that, you have it.
And seeing none, hearing none, anyone in the room wish to speak in opposition to this application, either here or online? Seeing none, hearing none, application is closed. On. Number 4, 1668 Fairfield Beach Road, map 234, parcel 122, petition of RAD Fairfield LLC for a variance of the zoning regulations, section 11.1, or 11.10, sorry, Matt, to increase the lot coverage from 20%, proposing 20.6%, and 11.11.3 to reduce the side setback from 6 feet, proposing 1.4 feet, and section 11.14 to reduce the setback from Pine Creek from 10 feet, proposing 0.3 feet. Permission to remove an existing deck and reconstruct in same location. Premises is BD zone. And this, I believe, is being delivered online.
Correct, Mr. Chairman, ZBA Board, my name is Joe Wren. Can you see me and hear me? Okay,
You're good.
excellent. Thank you.
Address, please.
Yes, I'm a professional engineer of Indigo Land Design. We are at 40 Elm Street in Old Saybrook. Also online are Rachel and brothers and sister, Rachel and Michael Doft. You can see them online as well. I understand you would like the cameras to be on, so they could probably turn their video on as well. While they're doing that, just as a matter of housekeeping, we did set up all the proper notifications, and we did scan and deliver the neighborhood petition to Matt earlier today, so he has that. As far as the presentation, am I able to share my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
And Joe, this is Rachel. I just want to make sure you can see me and that everyone can see me.
Nope, your camera's off at the moment,
Oh.
Rachel.
Okay, huh.
It was on a second ago.
Oh, okay. Let me see if I can change that. Sorry about that. Go ahead. I'll try to work on it. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so everyone can see my screen now?
One moment. Yep, you're good.
Excellent. So this is the survey map that was prepared. Up in the upper right corner, there is a location map. Everyone's familiar with Fairfield Beach Road and Pine Creek. This location is here. Similar to other properties on Fairfield Beach Road, there is the main house on Long Island Sound side, which is number 1671. Nothing is being proposed or done on that side at all. On the opposite side of the road, or north side of the road, house number 1668 is at this location. There's currently a deck and steps at the front, a gravel driveway, a small shed in this corner. There is an existing deck here with steps. And then there is a bulkhead similar to all the other properties along Pine Creek. In a nutshell, what we're proposing to do is to repair this bulkhead, and I'll show you photos momentarily. Currently, there is soil behind that bulkhead and is being lost through the deteriorating bulkhead and causing structural failure of this deck. And again, we included pictures with the application, and I'll bring those up momentarily. All the applicant is proposing to do is to remove this deck, because they have to. In order to repair the bulkhead, they have to excavate behind the bulkhead to replace the timbers. And I'll show you those plans as well. And then rebuild the deck back to its existing dimensions, no differently. The steps, all the dimensions of the deck, step on the right side and a few steps on the left side, all of that will be put back. So we're not technically increasing anything. Since we're removing this to repair it, we kind of have to treat it as a new structure, unfortunately. The structure was there for decades. No one knows the exact date. We went back in some aerial photographs, which we included. The furthest we can go back with a clear image was 2006, which is now 18 years ago. But Rachel and her brother have recollection of the deck being there back to the 1970s when they were children at that time, and remember being on the deck, but we just don't have any photographs of that. Regardless, it's been there for decades, and it's in existing non-conforming condition. And with that, I would like to bounce to the application itself, where we provided, you should see the application now on the screen, but we provided the summaries and the narratives. Before I get into those, I would like just to go to the scroll down and get into the site photographs. So starting with this photograph, I can rotate this too. So this is 2006, October 2006, and you can see the house and you can clearly see the deck with the railings. Next photograph is from 2012 that we had. Again, you can see the house with the existing deck and railings. 2022, same thing, not much change otherwise, very similar deck. These next photographs are of the existing bulkhead. So this first photograph is essentially the northwest corner, how it ties into the adjacent property. This next picture on the right is kind of a lateral picture along the seawall, and you can see there is some bowing. You can see the existing pilings that need to be straightened as well. But the biggest issue is down low, kind of at the mud line. You can see all this deterioration here. And in many areas, it's perforated through, and there's significant loss of soil from the other side of the bulkhead, causing the failure of the deck. This photo is the current deck as it is, and you can see the large sag in the center. It hasn't quite fallen in yet, but you can see the structure is being undermined. The soil support is being lost, and it is getting to the point where it's unsafe to use and needs to be rebuilt. But of course, you wouldn't rebuild the deck without fixing the substructure, because the same problem would occur very soon thereafter. Some of these other photos just show different angles of the seawall. We're proposing to leave the piles in place. We had a structural engineer evaluate the whole situation. The piles will stay in place. However, they will be jacketed with plastic, PVC jackets, and then grouted in between to extend and prolong their life. The timbers on the backside that you can see here all will be removed. Once the deck is removed and excavated down, those timbers will all be removed and all be replaced in kind with similar material, 4x6 lagging members attached to the back of those pilings all the way down. And you can see in these photos, this was at a lower water condition, but you can see that Pine Creek, when the tide comes up, you can see it gets right up against the seawall. Hence the request of the 0-foot existing and proposed setback to the seawall. The deck is just, the lagging is 4 inches thick, and the deck is just on the other side of the lagging. There's some separation here because of the wall bowing out, which will be repaired, but you can see generally it's essentially adjacent to the edge of the deck. The deck will not be attached to the seawall, because if it is structurally attached, then it also becomes the jurisdiction of the DEP. We did apply for a certificate of permission with the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection. We did receive that, and I have a copy of that to show you as well. But December 2023, we did get a certificate of permission or license from DEP to do the work to the bulkhead as described. This angle of the deck, again, you can see this is from the northeast side looking kind of to the northwest. Here's Pine Creek here, and you can see the clearly see the sagging of the deck in there. These are just all of the abutters. And with that, I want to go back to the beginning of the application. We do have our summaries here and the variance requests and so forth. These are written here, and I would just like to quickly read these in and paraphrase where I can. They are both very short. The answer to number 10, this was the narrative. The purpose of our project is to replace the existing deck between the existing house and the existing bulkhead along Pine Creek in kind, approximately 400 square feet plus the steps to the grade. The existing deck has failed structurally. See photos due to the deterioration of the timber bulkhead along the tidal creek. The lower timber lagging along the bulkhead has deteriorated to a point that soil from beneath the deck is migrating with tidal fluctuations to Pine Creek, thereby diminishing the soil support of the deck foundation. On December 8, 2023, we received DEP authorization to excavate behind the bulkhead, replace the timber lagging, and install jackets and mortar around the existing pilings to repair the bulkhead and substantially increase its lifespan and structural integrity. This repair, of course, requires the removal of the existing deck to excavate beneath and conduct the repair to the bulkhead. Our variance request will allow the deck to be replaced in kind with no expansion whatsoever after the bulkhead is repaired and the area is backfilled. Narrative to number 11. We have enjoyed this property with our family for many decades, and the deck has always been there for as long as we can remember. The original permit for the bulkhead repair was issued in 1976 and authorized for construction through 1979. So the deck was likely originally built after that repair in the late 70s or early 80s. A review of aerial photos confirms that the deck has been there since before 2006, but the images are too blurry to show prior to that. The exceptional hardship is explained in detail in number 10 above, but it is very clear. The existing deck has failed structurally, which requires the bulkhead to be repaired. And in order to repair the bulkhead, the deck has to be removed and replaced. The deck is an existing non-conforming structure that has been in place for decades. We're not requesting any expansion of any existing non-conformity, nor are we introducing any new non-conformity, just simply requesting to replace the existing deck in kind after the bulkhead is repaired. The repaired bulkhead together with the replaced deck will substantially enhance safety and is a proactive measure to avoid any unnecessary future property damage to the land and or the house in the event of a significant coastal storm. So with all of that, we are, and I know this was already read into the record, we have these three variances that were identified that we would need. Again, we're removing the existing nonconformity to repair the bulkhead, but then to replace the deck, we need these variances. So section 11.10, lot coverage, 20% max allowed. The entire property with both houses across the street without the deck and the steps, once that's removed, is 18.2. But with the deck and the steps, that is 20.6, so just 0.6% above the max allowed. Section 11.11.3, side yard setback. This is on the west side, 6 foot minimum. The current deck is 1.4, being replaced back in kind would be 1.4. And lastly, section 11.14, setback from Pine Creek is 10 feet minimum. We have 0 feet to the bulkhead, as I showed in the picture, and then 0.3 feet or approximately 4 inches because of the thickness of the timber lagging to the deck. It actually may be more like 4.5 inches because there's a little gap between the two, but we just rounded to 0.3 to be safe. Down below those, we included some other verbiage here. I just want to go through this too because I think it applies. It should be noted that the deck is being replaced due to the repair of the bulkhead, and incidentally, the deck, section 2.11, permits repair of an existing non-conforming structure for ordinary repair and maintenance for safety purposes, as long as there is no increase in nonconformity. So if the bulkhead didn't need to be repaired, this section would just allow us to repair the deck. But since we have to remove it, that's where these variances come in. So section 211 says, except in the event of fire or other casualty, as provided in section 2.10 of the zoning regulations, nothing in the zoning regulations shall be deemed to prohibit work on any non-conforming building or structure when required by law to protect the public health or safety, and when ordered by the building inspector, fire marshal, or director of health, provided such work does not increase the nonconformity, which we are not doing. Nothing in this section shall be deemed to prohibit ordinary repair and maintenance of a nonconforming building or structure, or replacement of existing materials with similar materials, which is exactly what we would be doing in this case. With that, I want to go to the structural plan here that you should be able to see now on the screen. We included this as part of the application. And there's plan view that shows the steps to grade in the existing deck. This is plan view. Here's the bulkhead and the pilings and how all of that would be repaired. Section AA, this is the existing section. So on the left side, we have the existing pilings of the bulkhead, the timber lagging behind it. There are some tieback pilings that are below the ground underneath the deck, and those would be left in place for additional support. The existing deck obviously is above that with its railing, and then we get to the house at this location. On the right-hand side, we have a proposed section, and you can see the existing pilings. They're jacketed and mortared in between to protect those pilings. We have new tiebacks to the existing pilings underneath the deck, and then the new deck structure replaced there basically in kind, except with 2x10s, which is now normal code for a deck of this size, and the wood decking surface. We are replacing, this plan was prepared by a licensed structural engineer. We are replacing that soil underneath with some more well-draining soil, some crushed stone down below, and then some sandier material up above as earth fill, just to promote drainage and work against the future deterioration of the lagging as well. Next, as long as you can continue to see my screen, I just wanted to show you this is the actual official license from DEP for this work, reconstruction of a seawall for flood and erosion control. And again, this was just from last December. After this was submitted, we talked to zoning. That was very helpful, got us to this point. We submitted the ZBA application, and that is why we are here in front of you today for these purposes. So they can move forward, hopefully, with this work in the near future. That is everything that I have, I believe. If Rachel or Michael wanted to add anything, now would be a good time, and then we could open it up for any questions.
Sure. Thanks, Joe. And I hope everyone can see me again. I apologize if for some reason that's not working. I just wanted to reiterate and emphasize just what you had already said, which is all we're trying to do here is restore something that's been in place for as long as I can remember. Not adding anything to it, just trying to keep the property functioning. So I think other than that, you've said everything. And Michael, if there's anything you want to add, go ahead. Thanks.
Okay. I don't know if anyone can hear me yet. Hi.
You're good.
I'm Michael Doft, Rachel's brother. My grandparents bought this house in property in 1950. It's been in the family since before I was born, and it's always been in the background. And we've it's sort of the central focal part of our lives for generations, and we tried to keep this, to maintain it with respect to the property. The property is sort of like a time capsule, and we have excellent relations with our neighbors who we consider to be real friends. There's a saying that rust never sleeps. And while the bulkhead isn't made out of metal, it's made out of wood. And I guess ideally we'd rather not be doing this project, but our hand has been forced where we really feel that we have to do this project because of real concern, seeing that the wood is rotting and that the fear that the bulkhead might collapse at some point into Pine Creek and dangerous, dangerous with falling in. So we hope that we have the town's approval to do the repair work. The goal is to keep things the same as they have always been, and just to rebuild it. And thank you so much for your consideration. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, this is Joe Wren. Just one last quick comment. I pulled up the 2022 aerial, which you should see up on your screen there. And I just wanted to point out that, if you look up and down Pine Creek, just in this short section of Fairfield Beach Road, you can see, very similar situations with, of close neighbors having decks and structures and even houses closer to Pine Creek that we're requesting. We are aware of at least one variance in the area requesting a 0-foot setback to Pine Creek for these purposes. So we don't, we think we're, in our opinion, we think we're in harmony with all of these houses or many of these houses along Pine Creek on this side.
Okay. Board have any questions? Go ahead, Jane.
This question is for Mr. Wren. Is the bulkhead part of this variance application? Or is that a separate structure that doesn't require a variance?
It's an interesting question. Generally, the bulkhead is the coastal jurisdiction line touches the bulkhead, so it's under state jurisdiction, which we got a license, which I showed you from the DEP to repair that. So technically, it's my understanding that really the deck is where the town jurisdiction starts, but we are requesting a 0-foot, 0.3 to the deck from Pine Creek, because the 0.3, the water's on the water side of the timber lagging, and the deck is on the house side of the timber deck.
But when I look at the site plan, the existing and proposed dimensions, nothing's changed, right? The size of the deck.
That's correct. That's the whole.
So
thing.
why do we need a variance? Why isn't it just a repair? You were told by somebody that had to be applied.
They want to put it back. They're rebuilding a pre-existing non-conforming structure.
Okay, but if you're trying to characterize it as a repair?
Repairing the bulkhead, replacing the deck.
Yes.
Correct.
Mr.
So
Wren.
it was kind of to our surprise as well that a variance was needed just because we were replacing it back. But Matt very clearly made the point to us that we're removing it. So we're taking away the nonconformity because we have
Thank
to.
you. Okay, thank you for clarifying that. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions from the board? None, seeing none. Is there anybody in the room or online who wishes to speak in favor of this application? Anyone in the room or online wish to speak in opposition to this application? Hearing none, seeing none, items. On to number 5, 9 Ludlow Court, map 180, parcel 327, petition of Megan Adesi and Miele and Joseph Miele for a variance of the zoning regulations, section 5.2.4, to reduce the sum of 2 sideline setbacks from 25 feet, currently 22.9 feet, proposing 22.9 feet. Permission to construct a second floor addition. Premises is A zone.
Good afternoon, Chairman and Board. I'm Megan Neely. My husband Joe was outside. But we're here to seek a variance for our home to reduce the sum of two sideline setbacks from 25 to 22.9, which it currently is, so that we can construct a second story addition over our pre-existing home. The hardships of our property are that it's non-conforming, was built in 1936, and it's so it's a pre-existing structure, and the property that we are on is very long and thin and primarily built on ledge and rock and boulders. So we're trying to keep as we expand. That's my daughter who's yelling outside. Sorry. As we expand our family, we're trying to just expand our house a little bit, and we want to just keep on the existing footprint of the house as much as we can to avoid having to dig into rock and potentially mess with the structural integrity of the property. So from ours or our neighbors. So that's
Any questions from the board? Hearing none, seeing none. Anyone in the room wish to speak in favor? Go right ahead.
Elise McKay, I live at 148 Ludlow Road. I'm a neighbor of the Miles, and I just wanted to say that I think it would be a wonderful thing for them to be able to add on to their home, and I hope they approve the application. It would be wonderful to keep them in our neighborhood.
Yep.
Yeah.
Anyone in the room or online wish to speak in opposition to this request? Hearing none, seeing none, you're done. All set. On to number 6. 2962 Burr Street, map 156, parcel 113, petition of Joseph D. Shaw for a variance of the zoning regulation section 5.2.4 to reduce the sideline setback from 30 feet, proposing 10.7 feet, permission to construct a detached 2-car garage. Premises is AAA zone.
Thank you. Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman and the board, Mr. Becker. So we are seeking a variance for a 2-car garage that is going to be detached in the there's a pre-existing shed where we want to build the detached garage. The side variance, side setback is 30 feet, so we're seeking to 10.7. There are a couple hardships on the property. Foremost, it is a undersized lot. It's 1.45 acres in a 2-acre zone. It is very narrow. The house itself is very near the front setback, just a few feet off of it, I believe. And so there's not really any room to build a garage there. On the south side of the property, there is a wetland area that prevents us from building there. And we currently have a small 1-car garage that is attached to the house that is essentially unusable, which is funny because back when they 50s cars were like planes, but I've lost paint on my minivan trying to pull into it. One time I did. So anyway, that we want to build close to that, but too close to the setback. We have spoken to our immediate neighbors, neighboring properties who have all signed the petition in support of this. Right where that setback is on the long driveway that meets the property. And I guess the last point is that it is the total building lot coverage, 10%. This would bump it to 4% for us. And that's it.
Okay, board have any questions? Go ahead, Jane.
This is a detached accessory structure.
Yeah, it's detached.
And, I'm looking at your site plan, and it says accessory structure side setback only has to be 10 feet. So is it because it's tall? I mean, why doesn't that?
It's over by 0.7 feet.
It's 0.7 feet. All right, so it would, the full side setback is 30 feet. For the accessory, it's 10 feet, and we're going over to.
2 acre zone, any structure greater than 100 square feet has to comply to the primary setbacks.
Thank you.
Oh.
Just reading because that's third.
That's something new. Any other questions from the board? Anyone in the room wish to speak in favor of the applicant, or anyone online wish to speak in favor of the applicant? Hearing none, seeing none. Is there any opposition in the room or online to the application? Hearing none, seeing none, we move on to number 7, 2263 Hillside Road, map 170, parcel 23. Petition of Zachary and Lauren Paradis for a variance of zoning regulations, section 5.2.4, to reduce the street line setback from an accessory structure from 60 feet, proposing 46 feet. Permission to construct a detached accessory structure with an apartment. Premises is AAA zoned.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name is Mariana Lage, 106 Country Place, Shelton, Connecticut. I am the homeowner's agent, Zachary's artist. We're seeking a variance for the front setback, go from 60 to 46. We have two hardships that I'll be claiming. The first one is the location of the septic, which takes our option to build this structure in any other place. And the second one is the amount of wetlands in this property. He has only 10% lot coverage, and that's compared to the size of the lot. He has a 2-acre size lot, and it's he can only use 10% of it because he has it's almost 90% of the lot is wetlands. So he can't go any further down because of the wetlands, and he can't touch the septic. So the only area that it's left for him to build this structure is where we're proposing. And he's currently at the, just state the number. He's at 2.47 lot coverage, and he's allowed 10%, but he couldn't reach the 10% even if he wanted to, because there's nowhere else to build. They're a young couple. They just had a newborn, and they're seeking to build a place where their in-laws could stay when they come over. This is a 1-bedroom structure. It's a small structure they're trying to do. So this is our case. Very simple and straightforward.
Okay. Does the board have any questions?
Oh, and I apologize. I have
okay.
the petition.
Go ahead and give those to Jody.
I brought, it's a big lot, so they only required 4, and the neighbors are all in favor.
Definitely not.
That's the nicest thing anybody said to you today. Hey, Jane, go ahead.
So at the site plan, and the structure is going to be built in the 100-foot radius in this area?
Yeah, we are, in anything that we do in this property, we're required to go through the wetlands department, and this is staff level permit.
But you haven't done that yet.
I've started the process, but we're waiting to hear from you guys. Once, hoping we get it approved, we would move forward because the fee is considerably high for the wetlands permit. So
How far away do you have to stay from the septic system?
25 feet.
Scale it
The
here.
septic is right at 25 from the house. We measured it. And this is a fairly new septic system. I think this is the best place for it to be, so he wouldn't mess with the septic system.
So, but it's 25 feet now from the back corner of the garage? Just wondering why you.
It is.
So where you show the new structure, you could slide it back up to that 25-foot? Because I don't see the, you know, setback of this septic system drawn.
Slide it back into the garage.
Like where you have the proposed patio and trellis,
Uh-huh.
could this proposed structure slide back into where that footprint is and still be 25 feet from septic?
That is a good question. I would have to measure this.
Yes. And that would increase the distance from the front of the proposed building to the front property line. Would increase that, you know, closer to what you're permitted to do.
I believe this is also to try to stay as far away from the wetlands as possible.
That fits between the two.
The whole area is in regulated area.
Because there is a level of proximity that requires us to go through the board, and there is a level that we can get a permit through the staff level. So there is the difference.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Seeing none, hearing none, is there anyone in the room wishing to speak in favor of the application or online? Seeing none and hearing none, is there anyone in the room or online who wishes to speak in opposition to the application? Seeing none and hearing none, draw the matter to a close. On to number 8. 344 Brookside Drive, map 123, parcel 216, petition of Rita. I reserve the right as chair to destroy anyone's name. Asperini Vassallo and Salvatore Vassallo. For a variance of the zoning regulations, section 5.2.4 to reduce the rear setback from 30 feet, currently 26 feet, proposing 26 feet, permission to construct a second floor addition.
And I live in for we are actually seeking variance to reduce the rear setback from 30 feet to 26. Currently, it is 26. And we would like, the reason for this is that we would like to construct a third floor on our existing house, changing the structure of the roof as well. So basically, basically that's it. And we also looking to add a small addition to the back to the house, which has nothing really to do with this particular variance. However, that's it. I don't think I missed anything. I have a petition from the neighbors, for the requested neighbors. There are no issues.
Give that to Jody. Just calling you now. Jane's gonna go ahead and ask you a question.
So on the zoning grid, it says that you want to build it just exactly up to the maximum height. Yes. Where are you measuring from? What ground level?
Where am I measuring from?
Average grade, is it?
You see, I'm not,
At the start of the meeting, we submitted a
maybe,
survey.
maybe Matt can help me out here because he knows the survey it was submitted. I'm not sure if you.
It's supposed to be average ground elevation, but that's what I'm wondering if that's what.
So however, this setback the house was, I believe, built in 54. So the variation is in the back, nothing to do with what we really, it's not gonna be touched. It's, I think, as Matt explained to me, that it's because of increasing the size. Is that correct?
Where's the height? Where's the average
The
grade?
surveyor will determine that based on the average grade.
So that's, okay.
Yes, yep.
Okay, any other questions from the board? Hearing none, seeing none. Anyone in the room wish to speak in favor of the application? Anyone online? Anyone in the room or online wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Someone calling in?
Sorry.
It's quite all right, as long as they're not, to speak in opposition. Okay. Would have been one heck of a thing. Okay, I'm sorry. We are now going to close that hearing. Problem. And we are now on to number 9. I am 3 left. Got at this, but I need 5 minutes after this one to call someone to get my kids. It's one of the advantages. As its privilege. All right, so the call is 140 Old Barn Road, map 179, parcel 17A. Petition of Paul and Dana Ferraro for a variance of the zoning regulations 5.2.4 to reduce the street line setback from 50 feet, currently 17.9 feet. Yes.
Skipped one.
I did. Oh, I had a check mark next to 90 Ridgeview. Sorry. 90 Ridgeview Ave, map 46, parcel 168, petition of Guido Picarazzi for a variance of the zoning regulation section 5.2.4 to reduce the street line and sideline setbacks from 40 feet and 15 feet, currently 29.5 feet and 9.1 feet, proposing 33.3 feet and 9.0 feet. And section 5.2.5 to increase the lot coverage from 15 feet, currently 18.6 feet, proposing 18.9 feet. Permission to construct an addition, premises R3 zone. Council?
Chairman, Commissioners, good to be before you. Chris Russo with Russo and Rizzo LLC, offices at 10 Sasko Hill Road in Fairfield. Here on behalf of the applicant for this request for variances for the property at 90 Ridgeview Avenue. It's an existing dwelling, an existing non-conforming dwelling. Every variance that we are asking for are standards that we are already non-conforming. It's including its front setback, its side setback, and its coverage. And it's something typical. You see these properties every hearing, that this is a property that was constructed before the zoning regulations, was built without any consideration to any type of zoning regulations, obviously. So they have an inherent challenge that they are non-conforming. This is a significantly undersized lot for the zone. It's a zone that is 20,000 square feet for minimum lot area. This is only 9,750, so less than half of what you require in that zone. And it's also narrow. It's 100-foot square in this zone. This is only 75 feet. As far as its existing nonconformities, right here on the side setback, it is at 9 feet. And then also along in the front setback, it's 29.5 feet. So on your side setback, you're required 15. And on your front setback, you're required 40. So it's already, this facade, you can see the red line there, it's already beyond. The building coverage requirement in this zone is 15%, and it's at 18.6% already. So what my client's done here is proposed a modest addition to really what's a modest dwelling. If you drove by it and you saw it, it's a modest home. It's a home desperately in need of repair. I have some photos to show you, but I'm sure that was readily apparent if you drove by it and saw the property. And so he's proposing a modest addition here in the front that will allow the creation of an additional parking space. It's only a 1-car garage now. This will allow it to be 2-car garage, bring it into compliance with your regulations, because you cannot, stack spaces cannot be counted as satisfying your regulations. The other thing he's proposing to do is to remove a large deck. I'll show you some photos of that, but there's a large deck that comes off the rear. That trade-off makes it so that the coverage is actually only going up by 0.3%. So it's going from 18.6 to 18.9. Again, because we're adding this here and then this rear portion here, two-story addition in the rear, but we are removing this entire deck back here. Just show you visually what that looks like. So it's not actually going to be red. The red is just showing you what the gray is existing. The red is the new portion. So here, looking from Ridgeview Ave, here is the portion that's getting added to the front. It's only half, 1 story up here. And what it allows is for 2 cars to pull in here, instead of 1. And then you can see here from the rear, this is the 2-story addition along the rear. So he's maintaining the existing side setback that's there now. He's not getting, I think it's 0.1 closer, 0.1 inches closer because of the, but practically he's just maintaining the same setback that exists. And then this is from the side where you'd see both additions there. You can see here's the front portion, and then here's the 2-story addition in the back. Floor plans. So again, because it's such a narrow lot, we can't do a side-by-side garage, unfortunately. But with this addition, it allows us to pull 2 cars in. And then see here's the addition as well. On the 2nd story, allows for the creation of a master bedroom, a master bath, and a closet. It's really the extent of it. It's still a very modest house. And certainly, frankly, there's houses, particularly the house right to the right of it, that's much bigger than this house will be. So just some photos to run through so you can see it. This is the area. So this is going to come forward. An addition here that'll bring it forward, and then in the back, it's going up with a 2-story addition, but maintaining that same line. I took this picture from where the edge of the garage is, so you can see that the house next door to them is pulled a little bit forward. We don't feel that this addition is going to encroach on that neighbor. And in fact, we have a petition signed by that neighbor in support of this application, as well as this neighbor to the right of the house and the neighbor to the rear, the most impacted neighbors from this addition. I think they're all pretty ecstatic to see this house renovated. These 2 pictures, you're looking at the right side of the house, and what you can see here is this deck that's proposed to be removed. It's just kind of hanging out there right now. It's a large deck. It's going to be removed, and so, therefore reducing coverage. This is the back of the house, and I tried to demonstrate it with the photo, but what you can see is there's a little area here that's about on grade with the rear of the house, and then there's a steep drop off. So we're just basically filling into the edge of where this, before this grade changes. Then I took a picture on Ridgeview Ave, drove down Ridgeview Ave, you probably noticed it's fairly narrow of a road. So being able to create more parking on the property is really a benefit, because when you have cars parked on the side of the road that you often find there, it does get a little tricky, and you got to kind of navigate around the park. So hopefully creating more parking will help alleviate that. Showed you the house to the right, one to just show size-wise. I mean, there are certainly much larger homes. This what's proposed even after the addition. You can see this is another shot of the front of the house, and then this is along the side between neighbors. A lot of and I'll show you an aerial here. A lot of the properties on this road are skewed left and have side setbacks and have needed side setback variances. They're all, this is typical, like particularly with this house, what happened was it was an older house that didn't have a garage that was centered on the lot, and then they added a garage to the left of it, and it becomes non-conforming as the side setback. One thing I'll also note, we're only going up 0.3% in building coverage. We are still under the FAR limit, which typically, if I come with an application to you for a coverage variance, it's usually together, especially on a lot that is this undersized. So, these lots typically do need a building coverage variance, but usually it'll come to you with an FAR variance along with it. And on this one, we're not, we're staying under the 30%. So even though it's only 9,750 square feet, we're still under an FAR. So, a very reasonable, modest addition to this home. And just want to hand out, and in that aerial, what I did was I circled the properties that signed this petition in purple. Showed up it's that one. So all the most impacted, particularly the neighbor on the side where this addition is going, is in support of the application. The one thing they did ask, and we would agree to as a condition of approval, is
Council, I'm actually gonna ask you to give me 3 minutes.
Take a break.
Yeah, I need 3 minutes to make a quick phone call. So we're just gonna sit in recess for 3 minutes. Sorry, guys. Okay, so calling back to order, are already in progress entertainment.
So to pick up where we were leaving off, the one thing I just wanted to state for the record, so we submitted the petition, everybody in support of the application, the abutting properties. There, one neighbor, the neighbor who is closest asked that we remove this window. Sorry, they just don't want us staring in. This is a closet, so we have no issue with that. So we, as a condition of approval, we would agree to remove the window on the second story. And so, it's relatively straightforward. I mean, these lots are all undersized. There's a lot of dwellings on that road that would pre-exist the regulations, so they are non-conforming. And so you will find there's been a lot of variances granted on this road for setback, for coverage, undersized lots where the house is offset. So hardship would certainly be the lot itself significantly undersized in lot area, which drives the building coverage variance. I think after this addition, the house is only 2,200 square feet, so it's still a pretty nice house, especially considering what's in the neighborhood. And with that, we are compliant as to FAR, which again, I know I already stated this, but that usually the FAR request and the building coverage request go hand in hand. But with this modest addition, we are able to stay compliant with FAR. It's also a narrow lot, 100 in the zone. We only have 75. It's what drives the variances in this area, having a garage next to the original dwelling. So we're maintaining that line as far as the setback. It's pre-existing. We are maintaining it. We're not getting any closer on the front setback. We made sure to. So the side setback we're maintaining. It's not increasing at all. On the front setback, it's getting pulled forward, but it's still behind the front facade. So actually, this is 29 and a half, and this is 33 feet. So we're set back, and we did that to be consistent with the neighborhood. In the neighborhood, the garages are all, the attached garages are all set back. So we've done that as well, but still not past, where the front facade is. And that's certainly that street line setback is typical of that neighborhood. As far as impacts the neighborhood, again, we think this addition is in keeping size-wise with what is found in the neighborhood. We are also adding parking to this site. That's an issue on Ridgeview Ave. There was a lot of on-street parking, so creating more parking on the site will help alleviate that condition. And we're also able to make it conforming on this site, which eliminates a nonconformity, which the elimination of a nonconformity can serve as a separate basis in granting a variance, as I know you've heard from us before. With that, happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Jane?
What did you say about stacked parking spaces?
Well, stacked, so right now, it's a single. Okay. This right now is a one-car garage. It's only, so you could only park in there and then have one in front. We're gonna move over. There's gonna be some extra driveway added, so we will be able to get another space in here. But on top of that, with the addition, we are gonna be able to stack 2 spaces in the garage. Ideally, would we love to have this be a 2-bay garage? Yes, but then we would go beyond what's the existing setback now.
But I heard you refer to something in the regulations that stack
Well,
space.
stack space are generally the second space, the stack space generally isn't counted. Well, no, it's permitted. It just doesn't go into your parking calculation. So you can't claim 2 spaces. You can only claim 1 because it's stacked. Is it in a residential zone as well? Yes.
Can't count 2 parking, like if a single car driveway, 2.
You can't get one out.
Yeah. And again, I mean,
To get the back one out, you have to move the front.
You have to have.
I understand, but there's
spaces.
this later. but-
yes. Yeah, you're so technically you would only be able, if you had a stacked space here, you'd only be able to count it under the regulations as well. Now this, we're able to have stacked space, but we're also, I don't know if it showed you, but that we're able to put another space here. So there'll be 2 side by side, that are able to be out there. And it's not behind another one, so it can count as a parking space. But yeah, under the regulations, you can only count the stacked parking spaces 1 towards your requirement. That answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Board have any other questions? Hearing none, seeing none. Is there anyone in the room who would like to speak in favor of this application? No? Anybody online? Wish to speak in favor? Hearing none, seeing none. Is there anyone in the room who wishes to speak in opposition to this application? Online opposition? Hearing none and seeing none. Now we can move on to number 10. That is 140 Old Barn Road, map 179, parcel 17A, petition of Paul and Dana Ferraro for a variance of zoning regulations, section 5.2.4, to reduce the street line setback from 50 feet, currently 17.9 feet, proposing 17.9 feet. Permission to construct an addition, premises is R3 zone. Sounded familiar.
Chairman, members of the commission, Chris Russo with Russo and Rizzio LLC, offices at 10 Saskill Hill Road, Fairfield, here on behalf of the applicant for the property at 140 Old Barn Road. In some ways, this argument is almost recycling the one I just made, because we're dealing with an existing dwelling that is already non-conforming as to street line setback, and that's where our variance is. This one almost even more so. Typical of a house built in 1923, it is close to the road. It's close to Old Barn Road. And what you can see here, hopefully you can see, if you can, I'll outline it. But the street line setback is that red line right there. So almost the entire house is non-conforming as to street side line setback. Funny enough, if you built on the back of the house, like right here in this area, you would need a variance for the front setback. That's how far forward it is. It's actually, my house has the same thing. It's an 1820 house. It's entirely within the front setback. That's how those houses were constructed. We also have, with this property, a significant grade change. If you've been to Old Barn Road, it dips down here into this wetland area. So there's a significant wetland in the back that's driven a lot of the development here up front and forward. It is also struggles with parking. I'll show you some pictures. It has a grade change that starts here actually and just continually falls back. So the driveway actually dips down. It's a pretty narrow driveway into what ends up being a single car garage. It's so narrow. With this proposal, we are adding 2 dormer additions to the front and a garage addition that will allow it to be a 2-car garage, accommodate more parking. On top of that, it's not something we're asking for a variance for, but we're creating an additional parking area here to add some more off-street parking, similar to Ridgeview Ave, Old Barn Road, may even be narrower. And it creates a real problem if people have to park on the street. I'll show you a picture of that thing. But so with it, we are still, with this proposal, we are significantly under building coverage, 10% allowed in the zone. We're only at 5.4. And on floor area percentage, it's 20 in the zone. We are requesting 5%. So a quarter of what's permitted in that zone. So it's really, and if you drove by it, it's a modest house. And the addition to it is modest. Just to give you a lay of the land, this is the front of the house. And what you can tell here in these series of photos is from Old Barn Road, it already starts losing grade. So this sits lower. You can see it steps down here to the front door. So these additions, which I'll show you the elevations, really, I mean, that's a zone that allows, I think it's 40 feet height. And the height measurement for this building is 17 feet. So it's not a tall building, but it's also set down, which also kind of reduces the impact of the height. Just wanted to show you in these pictures, the distance. This site has good buffers to its neighbors. This is the neighbor to the left, downgrade and pretty far to actually the street that intersects Old Barn Road here. This is the neighbor across the street to the right who sits up because the grade just continues to fall out, so he sits higher. This is directly across the street where the addition is going. Again, higher grade, can't even see the house for the neighbor there, and he's in support of this application. This is Old Barn Road. You can see my truck parked here, and I pulled it off to the side, and you can see there's not, if somebody else parked here, it's very difficult to pass through. So the extra parking that we're creating, I know our client is speaking with our neighbors. They were excited to see that we were creating parking on site. This is across the street as well. You can see that neighbor is pretty far in the distance, as well as here's our driveway, and there's our neighbor to the right. This is so you can see the driveway here. It starts to lose grade, and then it comes down into this garage, which width-wise, it really only can fit a single car. With 2 cars, it's too packed. But you can see here too that you can see that grade change going down. So it's a house that really sits on the site from the road. And they're gonna open this right here. They're gonna open this area right here and create an expanded driveway to handle more parking. Elevations. So there's proposed gable over the front door. And then another proposed dormer, and this is the garage addition. Again, modest improvements, I think architecturally, I think significant improvement to what's there, but nothing above. You can see the existing peak right there. It's really, again, it's only 17 feet high. This is a view from the side, so the new 2-car garage. And then here's a view of the garage from the rear. Nice improvements with the windows. You can see with the garage addition, it's going to be a 2-car garage, 26 feet in width, and then has a media room above the garage. But going back, just to go back to the site plan, just so you can see. So there's that There's that gable addition right here. It's maintaining the same exact front facade. It's not coming any closer to the road. It's just maintaining what's there. And then the dormer, and then the garage addition, which this actually does go finally back in the front setback line, but this all is within the front setback, is how that is. And on aerial to you, one, so you can see the site and how it's positioned, and then in relation to the other properties. What you also see is highlighted in purple, all the neighbors who have supported this application. I'll hand out the petition to you as well. Most importantly, the neighbors that would be most impacted, particularly by the garage addition, signed off on it. We tried to go to the neighbors on our other side. They weren't there. I don't know if they were away, but we're neighbors reached out. That's really not the side that's impacted the most. Just change to the petition. But it's a similar argument to the application I just spoke on. It's already so non-conforming as to street setback. We are just maintaining the line. It's typical of these older homes for them to be non-conforming as to street setback. And the addition, even with what's proposed here, we're a quarter of the floor area. We're less than half of the building coverage. So I think it's really modest compared to what's permitted there. And really, there's no addition we could do to the house, except for if you went off of this little area back here, that wouldn't need a variance. So just to go through hardship, to repeat myself, but again, it's a historic house located within street line setback. The grade change minimizes the impact. The height is totally compliant with the regulations, but the added gables, the way the house is set down, it really minimizes any impact to the neighbors. We also have wetlands on our site that drove this building forward towards the road even more. And we are maintaining the existing non-conforming setback. We're going no closer to the road than is currently there. As far as impact to the neighborhood, the neighbors have signed, multiple neighbors, budding neighbors have signed in support of the application. We've added parking now to this site, which again is much needed because of a narrow road. Really visually kind of maintain, frankly, I think we're improving a lot in this building. Some sunlights that are out of character for this building that are getting removed and replaced with nice windows. Let me answer any questions that you might have.
Board have any questions? None, seeing none. Is there anyone in the room who wishes to speak in favor of this application? Anyone online? Seeing none and seeing none, is there anyone in the room who would like to speak in opposition to this application? Either here or online? Hearing none and seeing none, we'll draw this to the close. On to number 1135 Mill Hill Road, map 222, parcel 102, petition of Susan Earls and Leaf Vick for a variance of the zoning regulations section 6.3.8A to allow a detached structure to be converted to an accessory apartment on a lot that does not meet the minimum lot area requirements of the applicable zoning district in section 6.3.8C to increase the maximum allowable square footage for an accessory apartment, 40% of the primary dwelling, proposing 53%. Permission to convert a loft and a detached garage to be an accessory apartment. Premises is AA zone.
Hello to the board. Thank you for your considerations. I'm representing my husband, Leif Vick, and myself, Susan Earls, or Susan Earls Vick. And we live at 1135 Mill Hill Road in Southport. And we are here because we wish to renovate our existing detached garage to convert the second floor to an accessory apartment. It's already there and functioning, but we just don't have any type of bathroom or kitchen. So we are located, our problem is we are located in a residential AA zone. It's a 1 acre zone, which allows for a detached structure to be used as an accessory apartment. Our hardship is that we are an undersized lot by 50%. Our lot is only 20,831 square feet in a 1 acre district. With that, our second floor of our garage is 750 square feet, and that brings our percentage of the total dwelling square footage allowed for the accessory apartment to 52%, whereas 40 or 150 square feet, whichever is less, is allowed. We are well below the 1,500 square feet, and we are not asking to expand the existing garage at all. And that's really it. We're just asking to put in a bathroom and that.
Okay. Jane, any questions?
Are you going to have all the parking that you need?
We have an ample.
Football garage. Yeah. Any other questions from the board? Hearing none and seeing none. Are there any persons here wishing to speak in favor of this application? Online? Pause for lag. No. Anyone in the room or online wish to speak in opposition to this application? Hearing none and seeing none. Drawing this application to a close. I believe that draws our hearing to a close. I'm going to guess that 5 minutes. Let's take, back at 10 of 6. Okay, then I will restart the hearing, and this is closed. This is open executive session. So all of you are familiar herein. This part of our show is for the board members only. I will hear no comment. I will hear no voice other than those on the board. Should I hear voices other than those on the board, those voices will be asked to depart. Very, very simple, very, very clean. We're going to debate. You've done your job now. The cute voices are an exception. And if she makes a salient point, that might be your only hope. That might be just sheer wit alone. So we're going to start with number 10 on the continued docket, which was continued to April. That was 380 Pine Creek Avenue. Again, that was continued to our April docket. Number 9, 481 Riverside Drive, map 130, parcel 46, petition of 481 Riverside Drive LLC for a variance of the zoning regulations, section 5.2.4, to reduce the street line setback from 30 feet, currently 37.5 feet, proposing 20.3 feet, and section 5.2.5 to increase the lot coverage from 20%, currently 17.8%, proposing 21.3%. Permission to construct a 2.5-story FEMA compliant single family dwelling, premises A zone. I need a motion to approve.
I make a motion to approve.
Errol moves.
Yay. You have a second.
And a second.
I'll second.
Okay, Elise seconds. So I'm going to speak last in any of these. I'm going to let you guys start. But what I'm going to ask first of us is let's define the hardship first. Let's just say, did we find a hardship in this? So we agree that there's a hardship that gives us an easy cause to talk, and then we'll talk further. Is that amenable to everyone?
Mr. Chairman, just
Harold, go ahead.
small correction. I believe that the proposed change is 20.9, as was mentioned. Not the one. Yeah.
It was read by council as 20.9%. though not offered as a condition, so I'm inclined to read it as
Corrected it
as in the call.
It was corrected at 20.9. Call it 20.9.
Okay, so I will call it at 20.9. And 20.4, not 20.3. Okay, so that call is made as corrected by council in their read and in the application as noted by staff. So discussion, who would like to start the ball rolling?
Unique shape of the lot leads us to a deduction and what's necessary for the gross lot area. That's one of their hardships.
Okay. So that tells me I have at least a hardship based on definition. Right? Yes,
Yes, that's why we're here.
exactly. Well, I want to make sure that we state that there's an accepted hardship. Lot shape, yes. The lot shape, the amelioration of the two sideline setbacks also gives grounds. So we do have something to hear. Let's discuss the merits.
I think a lot of the point.
Someone raise their hand. Elise, go ahead.
I mean, I want to note that a lot of what the opposition, what people spoke in against the application are points well taken. I just don't know if they address the specific issues that we're here to decide and the variances we're here to decide. The height, for example, and maybe Matt can, I don't know, we're speaking to 40 feet. Certain areas of the roof. Do we only look at the midline and 30 feet as the, maybe you can,
Okay, so if you go to the definitions of height in
Yeah.
some regulations,
that's where it comes in.
it refers first to where they've measured it to at the midpoint between the main eave and the highest ridge. But the next sentence says, for flat or mansard roofs, the measurement shall be taken to the roof deck. We have a flat section of that upper level, which is higher, which is much higher. So I think that is where the height should be measured to. And then in this case, I mean, Mr. Decker's shaking his head, but yeah, that's, why one, not the other?
You asking me a question?
Chairman, can I ask?
You may ask staff a question, yes.
Definition reads, it's the highest point, which is the height of the ridge, primary ridge, midpoint of the main eave line. The rooftop, or it's not a rooftop deck, it's a deck that comes off above the second floor. That's below the highest ridge.
But there is a portion of that highest floor level that has a flat roof.
No, it's partially pitched. It's like a 3 pitch.
So
That's not the highest point though. And
it
that's,
doesn't qualify as flat?
no, and it's not higher than the main ridge either. It's lower than the main ridge. So you take it from the main ridge, the average between the main ridge and the main eave line, where you measure down to the average grade.
Okay.
The flat portion you're referring to is a section, portion of the house. And it's probably a 10 by 10 section of the footprint.
So there's no such thing as a flat roof because you have.
There is, and in the beach, or in any kind of area in our regulations, a rooftop deck requires a special permit to the Planning and Zoning Commission as well.
That's the flat.
That's the flat, that would be the flat portion. The mansard roof is if that's the only portion of the roof, that's the highest point.
Okay, but
So the deck is not a mansard roof. The deck is just a deck.
I'm talking about that.
So if they cut off, if they cut off the mansard roof, or the ridge, and they made it flat and made the actual design, a mansard design, would measure to the top of that ridge, or the top of that mansard portion. And that's where your height would be. This is not that.
So the flat-ish portion of that room that's at the highest level is not flat enough to count, is what you're saying.
High enough to count. It's got to be above the ridge line.
Be above the count line is what I'm understanding. So if it's not,
It doesn't say. Or this,
It's not a mansard roof though. And as an architect, you know what the mansard roof.
Mansard roof, just, yeah,
This is a shed dormer that comes off to allow access out to the deck that's
my
open.
reading of this is a little different. And, you're the one who makes the decisions, but,
I don't make the decisions. I just follow the
okay.
regulation.
It says
So,
flat or mansard roof, so I'm looking at the flat.
That's not a mansard roof. By definition, is not
So it's flat or mansard, so forget the
a
mansard.
flat roof either. And even if it were, that's not where we count it. We go to the highest point. A main ridge line that is more than 50% of the width of the house is the main ridge line. It's the same.
Thank you.
So that being stated, the height is not, whether it is, it isn't, it can be grounds for whatever happens after this. There is no variant, there's been no variance required by staff for heights.
I
It's not
understand that.
it's not one of the things that we have to deliberate on.
Right.
What we have to deliberate on specifically is the 21.3% and the 20.9% and the, what was it now, the 20.4 feet. So absolutely.
Okay, so a lot of discussion by the public talking about sightlines for driving. We can't even discuss
That
that.
has
It has
nothing to
nothing
do
to
with
do
what
with
we're doing.
any of this, unfortunately, but
Correct.
because this building doesn't even exist, it's just lines on a piece of paper. And they've already sharpened their pencil once to make it smaller. It can be redesigned. It can be made smaller and it can be moved. There's still plenty of area within all the setbacks to design a house. So there's no particular reason why it has to extend out as far as they're asking into the front setback. House doesn't exist. There's an existing house there now that's conforming. So what the house that's there now, the little one,
Conforming at all.
the front setback to it?
Yeah,
Well, that's
Front is, but
Big setbacks are not.
sides,
Talking about-
sides are,
Talking about front setback, so
the,
it's possible to do, that's my point.
the front, well, it would be possible, but you would remain in opposition to the sideline setbacks if you did so, right?
Not taking that same house moving back, I'm saying design a different house.
What I'm asking, we're not here to discuss design and aesthetic, but physically, geometrically, whatever they built, if they built something 60 feet wide or 50 feet wide, whatever the width of this house is or what have you, they would still end up, they would have to build something, what would the width of the house have to be to stay where it is and be in conformity with the setback? Are we asking them to build an envelope or are we asking them to, that's what I'm trying to figure out.
What into designs that you could do that will be within the setbacks?
Do we want to say that by creating a new, to grant a variance, which is not within the zoning regs, by changing the front setback, we've now eliminated but two, the side setback, but we've created variance for the front. I mean, is there not a way to have it both ways, as Jane is saying?
It is, I can't argue that there is a way to do it. What I'm stating, what I'm asking, in the interest of leading discussion, and I want to hear from everyone, is what they're asking for entirely outside the comprehensive zoning plan? Does it fit with, these are the standards that we generally go by? Does it fit the comprehensive zoning plan? Does it fit the neighborhood? Does it meet those criteria that we generally go by? It stayed under FAR. It has met, for all intents of definition at this point, the height requirement. We're just looking at a front line setback and a fairly small coverage allowance budget.
Okay, so the plan, the POCD, it's a draft version that's dated February this year, and it talks about legacy neighborhoods, not historic districts, but legacy neighborhoods where there's a common theme that we want to maintain. So I don't think this house does that at all.
Okay,
So
Joe, you had your hand up a moment ago.
Yes, the only thing that bothers me about the application is its aesthetic. Exactly what Jane was talking about, the way it fits in with the current neighborhood. Is if that's a reason, if it have to consider its impact on the neighborhood in that manner, do we not?
I believe to an extent in the character of the neighborhood, yes. I
So,
would,
yeah, I don't see anything like this in the neighborhood. And that in my mind would mitigate against our approving this, but if anyone else has any thoughts about that, let me please share, because haven't made up my mind.
Well, we have two things we have to measure this against, the POCD and the zoning regulations. And they're carried in the weight. So looking at the POCD, we usually don't talk about it, but it's all here, the proposed version. We're talking specifically about legacy neighborhoods.
Harold?
First of all, I believe that anything that needs to be built there needs to be FEMA compliant. So anything will have to be raised, which will affect the height of the structure. I agree that from the drawings, nothing's built there yet, but drawings, that the structure looks to be inconsistent with the rest of the neighborhood, but I don't know that there's legal precedent to determine what structure should look like to fit in the neighborhood. Correct me if I'm wrong, if there's something legal, you pointed out there's something written about fitting into the structure. But I think from a legal standpoint, and we have dealt with non-compliant building lots and extending to some extent the structure to fit on that non-compliant, a new structure to fit on that non-compliant. But I think we have to look to the law and use the law to determine whether this petition meets the legal requirements in order to approve it, because I don't think the aesthetics, in anyone's personal opinion, can play into this.
So I will say we've already established the existence of the hardship, so we have the legal standing to hear the application and to make a decision. Jane stated that it's true. One of the reasons that we're all elected here is to protect in some way and to steward in some way what the neighborhoods and what Fairfield is intended to be viewed as, and how the land is to be allotted and houses are to be a part of the comprehensive zoning plan. So can we eliminate aesthetic from that? Not necessarily. However, go ahead. Absolutely.
So the POCD.
Say what POCD means.
Yes, the plan of conservation and development are not laws, they are goals, they're townwide goals. So I don't believe that this proposed house meets goals. So it's not a legal definition, it's a goal-oriented definition.
Harold again, in the future, there may be other homes that wish to renovate, change their look as well. So what happens then in terms of the goals of the neighborhood?
We are here to just, make a determination about the application that's in front of us. We can't predict what the future holds.
We hold no precedent. We look at no precedent. All applications are done on a one-to-one basis. I will state that I took a little exception to the characterization that there would be any backlash based on any presentation or any finding of this board. But what I will say is that in our experience on this board, in the applications that we've heard and been a part of, aesthetic aside, POCD aside, what we have before us is at least geometrically consistent fairly with the neighborhood. It's not a significant request. There are much larger homes than it on the street. I mean, there's 7 houses within 7 of it that are significantly larger than the existing house and parcel. And they're almost all, with the exception of the fact that this one sits on that curb, which we're not here to talk about, they're almost all closer to the street than the 30 feet. Anyone who wants to put a mailbox on this street is probably gonna have to come before our board. So I'm inclined to agree that it looks somewhat out of the character of what is around it. I am equally inclined, however, to say that I don't think that it's entirely out. I don't think it's outside the comprehensive zoning plan, and I don't think it's outside entirely. I don't think it's an insane ask. I don't think it's mathematically speaking, at least what we consider for a variance, a very big ask. Any other comment? Hearing no other comment, I will call for a vote. We're going to start to my left. Elise?
No.
Harold?
This is a hard one, no.
Joe? No. Jane?
No.
Brian is a no. That one didn't make it. On to number 1 on the general docket.
Hold on one second.
Oh, I gotta bring Katie back. Give me a minute to get your computing setup back to speed. All set up. Gotcha. Okay, number 1, 253 Reading Road, map 225, parcel 37. Petition of Deirdre M. Daly and Alfred U. Pavlis for a variance of the zoning regulation, section 5.2.4, to reduce the street line and sideline setbacks from 60 feet and 30 feet. Currently 20.3 feet and 10.5 feet, proposing 29.2 feet and 14.5 feet. Permission to remove the existing single-family dwelling and construct a new 2-story single-family dwelling. Premises is AAA zone. Need a motion to approve.
So moved.
Jane moves. Need a second?
I'll second.
Harold seconds. And discussion first. Katie, you might have missed this. I'm just trying something out. The first comments I'm looking for are the hardship itself. And then we'll move into further discussion of the merits. So anyone on the hardship for this? Stated.
Of the applicant put. Still not.
I think basically it ameliorates the existing condition, the nonconformity.
This, Harold, isn't the hardship that any modifications in a AAA zone need to come before the board? We need a petition, wasn't that stated? It's understood.
So my, and Jane can confirm when she finds it, but my understanding of the hardship in this case is that, or our finding here in the case, is that it ameliorates pre-existing nonconformities on the lot by improving the street line and sideline setbacks.
Wetlands and septic,
Yes.
so it's very basis.
It's definitely hindered by topography and stuff under the ground. So further discussion? Discussion on this? I thought it was a reasonable request. We'll just stick that on the record. Call for a vote. Katie?
Yes.
Harold?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That passes. Number 2 on our docket was continued. So move to number 3, 338 Commerce Drive, map 80, parcel 94, petition of CDR 328 LLC and CDR Properties LLC for a variance of the zoning regulations, section 13.12, to increase the maximum setback of 18 feet from 25.75 Commerce Drive, 24.71 feet Haley Court, proposing 55 feet from Commerce Drive and 67.64 feet from Haley Court, and section 13.13A to allow off-street parking to be allowed between a public street and the frontage of a building. Permission to construct an automobile dealership. Premises is DI zone. So go ahead, Jane.
Oh, I know that this overlay district is supposed to have.
Oh, I'm sorry. I need a motion to approve. Jane moves. Need a second.
Second.
80 seconds.
So I know that
Discussion.
the goal of this street was to have buildings up to the sidewalk,
Mhm.
but it's sort of a foregone conclusion by what's already there now with all the other car dealerships. So I think the character of the street is already so not what it is purporting to be, so.
So that was almost part of my question. Was what they made specifically meant to limit addition of any more of those things, but I don't think so, because they're allowed in the zone.
Especially, it's, they have to go back to zoning for it, don't they?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're just stop number
Yeah,
1.
but it's one of the accepted uses.
Well, no, it's, they have to get a change of use.
But the application is for accepted.
Their car dealerships are allowed in the
Right, but this particular.
in the zone.
lot has to-
Right, yeah,
Yeah,
but it is one of the list of approvable uses.
Yes.
Yeah.
It is, that zone is, car dealerships are allowable within that zone, yes. Any other discussion?
Unless you want a crystal ball as to why they did it this way.
Why they do what they do is not up to me, but I think it's a reasonable use for that space. I think it's gonna be a much nicer look than what's there. And
The hardship is straightforward.
yeah, it's the corner lot. Okay, Katie,
Yes.
Harold,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jane,
Yes.
Brian is a yes. Passes. And number 4, 1668 Fairfield Beach Road, map 234, parcel 122, petition of RAD Fairfield LLC for a variance of the zoning regulations, section 11.1 to increase, 11.10, sorry, Matt, I did that again. To increase the lot coverage from 20%, proposing 20.6%, section 11.11.3 to reduce the side setback from 6 feet, proposing 1.4 feet, and section 11.14 to reduce the setback from Pine Creek from 10 feet, proposing 0.3 feet, 0.3 feet. Permission to remove an existing deck and reconstruct in same location. Premises is BD zone. So. Need a motion to approve. Joe moves, second.
I'll second.
Harold seconds. Go ahead, Harold.
I have a question. Yes, reduce the setback from Pine Creek from 10 feet, proposing 0.3.
Yep.
Currently, there is a deck there.
There is a deck there.
And the deck, it looked like it was closer than 10 feet towards Pine Creek.
Yeah. It exists in an abutting,
Existing.
it butts up to the
Okay, so
bulkhead.
from a historical perspective, I mean, this is a reduction, replacement and structural repairs. So the 10 feet exist, 10 feet is based upon an older condition or?
No. No, the zone requires 10 feet. The pre-existing condition that is that it's already within that.
It is already within
Yeah,
it.
it's already within it. So
So it kind of
it's a pre-existing nonconformity. That's the,
obliterates the condition that way because it's pre-existing. Okay, I understand that. It was just confusing because I saw the deck was already there.
They have to remove the deck to repair the bulkhead.
correct.
And
they just
because
wanna
they're
put it back.
removing the deck, we need to approve its
It's
replacement.
replacement. Yep.
It goes back to the 10 feet.
And the bulkhead, as I understand it, delineates the property line up to it. So that's why its proximity to it is relevant. So I think it's I think it answers the safety question. I think it answers the hardship question because stuff going into the creek isn't good and the wall falling down to the bulkhead isn't good. Plus it's consistent with what's up and down South Pine Creek. So any other discussion? Hearing none. Katie?
Yes.
Harold?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Number 5, 9 Ludlow Court, map 180, parcel 327, petition of Megan Andesi Miele and Joseph Miele for a variance of the zoning regulation, section 5.2.4, to reduce the sum of 2 sideline setbacks from 25 feet, currently 22.9 feet, proposing 22.9 feet, permission to construct a second floor addition premises A zone. Need a motion to approve. Jane moves. 80 seconds. Discussion? Let's just state the hardship. I believe that it is because it's pre-existing non-conforming. Yep, and the lot size is smaller than it's supposed to be, right? So that takes care of that part. Any discussion?
Well, there's no change in the setbacks.
They just want to go up. Katie? Harold?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Brian is a yes. All set. Sure, now she's quiet. She doesn't want to cheer. Love a phone. All right, so that takes care of that. Number 6, 2962 Burr Street, map 156, parcel 13, petition of Joseph D. Shaw for variance of the zoning regulations, section 5.2.4, to reduce the side setback from 30 feet, proposing 10.7 feet, permission to construct a detached 2-car garage premises as AAA zone. And I need a motion to approve. Joe moves. I need a second.
Second.
Katie seconds. And let's just go ahead and state the hardship.
Lot's too small.
The lot is way too small.
It's only 3/4 minimum size.
Right. And it's also the, what else do we say? The wetlands and the topography a little bit, like just the orientation of the lot itself. Any just further discussion?
I just want to confirm something, Mr. Decker, about this. So the surveyor says on this, the accessory structure side setback 10 feet. That's incorrect on his survey.
No, that's correct. He just doesn't identify it as being under 100 square feet.
Okay.
So 10 feet is, in that district, it's 60 feet from the street line, 10 feet from the side for structures that are less than 100 square feet.
Okay.
Perfect. Any further discussion? It's reasonable, consistent, and on we go. Katie? Harold?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
Brian is a yes. All set. That takes care of that. We're on to number 7. I counted right this time, right? 2263 Hillside Road, map 170, parcel 23, petition of Zachary and Lauren parties for a variance of the zoning regulations, section 5.2.4, to reduce the street line setback from an accessory structure from 60 feet, proposing 46 feet. Permission to construct a detached accessory structure with an apartment premises AAA zone. All right. And I need a motion to approve.
To approve.
Katie's motion to approve. I need a second.
Seconds.
Jane seconds. Okay, discussion. Well, let's get the hardship first. I had topography, wetlands, septic. Okay. So any further discussion on this? Harold, go ahead.
Was it discussed as to why this could not be closer to the away from the setback? Was that?
Yeah, it's kind of pinched by the septic, by the wetlands. Anywhere they would put it on that side of the house would be within the 100. Yeah,
Disagree.
Of course you do.
So if they're gonna build a trellis farther back, they could just as easily take that proposed building and slide it back, and it would still be far enough away from the septic system, and it would increase the front setback closer to what's permitted. It's all, the whole thing's already in the wetlands, so that doesn't
Right,
make
but
it better
they're-
or worse.
Right, but you're making it better by how much to,
14 feet back.
so you're saying it would be in compliance?
It would be a lot closer to people. There's no reason why they can't do that.
Well, it's gotta be 60 feet.
Right, but it would
So
be
46 plus 16 is
62.
62, right?
Yeah, so I'm just saying, it's easy enough to slide it back to make it compliant. What? Yes?
Can I add something?
Absolutely.
I think the health department prefers it to be further away than 25, even though the setback is only 25.
Okay.
That might have been a recommendation that they had made. The trellis only has a pier rather than a full foundation.
Right.
That's my only feed. That and obviously conservation prefers everything to be far away from stuff.
Right.
I understand what you're saying.
Things in the wetlands
I
anyway.
will, I will say that just in my normal course of everyday business, putting in the stone for all these septic things, the farther away, the better.
But
I
it's a
understood.
recommendation, no.
It's a recommendation. No,
Get that. I just wanted
no, we get it. So let's call for a vote. Go ahead, Katie.
Yes.
Harold.
Yes.
Joe.
Yes.
Jane.
I'm gonna say no.
And I'm gonna say yes. Application is approved. So now we're on to number 8. 344 Brookside Drive, 123, parcel 216. Petition of Rita Aspreni Vassallo and Salvatore Vassallo for a variance of the zoning regulation, section 5.2.4, to reduce the rear setback from 30 feet, currently 26 feet, proposing 26 feet, proposing to construct a second floor addition, premises A zone. Need a motion to approve?
Like motion, Harold?
Harold motions. Second,
Second.
Jane seconds. Let's go ahead and state the, let's get the stated hardship on the record.
Non-conforming.
I believe that it was a pre-existing non-conforming
Structure's not.
structure. Yep, I believe that is correct. Pre-existing non-conforming structure. Further discussion.
All they need is to go up.
That's all they want to just go up. Yep, agreed. Katie,
Yes.
Harold,
Yes.
Joe,
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
I'm a yes.
Sky's the limit.
That passes. Oh, no, 40 feet's well. Sorry. Actually, in that zone, what is it? 30 feet. 32. I'm so close. All right, number 9, 90 Ridgeview Ave, map 46, parcel 168, petition of Guido Picarazzi for variance of the zoning regulation, section 5.2.4, to reduce the street line set and sideline setbacks from 40 feet and 15 feet, currently 29.5 feet and 9.1 feet, proposing 33.3 feet and 9 feet. Section 5. And section 5.2.5 to increase lot coverage from 15%, currently 18.6%, proposing 18.9%. Permission to construct an addition, premises R3 zone. I need a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Katie, need a second?
Harold.
Harold seconds. And let's go ahead and state the hardship.
It's an undersized lot.
Yep. So the size of the lot provides us with a hardship. Discussion, please.
It's a nominal increase that they're seeking. It's non-compliant lot, right?
Yep.
And it was stated that they will make a modification to the plan to accommodate a request from the neighbors about removing the window in the project.
Change your motion. It was a term of condition.
Oh, yeah.
It was offered and agreed upon, so yes, I will go back and,
That a condition.
yep, I'm gonna reread my request for a motion. You want me to do the whole call, Matt?
Just the
Okay.
motion to approve.
So I'm gonna ask for a new motion to approve this with the stated condition offered by the applicant to remove a second-story window. Motion, please. Jane moves. Need a second?
I second.
Harold seconds. As previously stated, the shape and size of the lot are a condition of hardship. It also ameliorates a pre-existing nonconformity by increasing one of the setbacks. So that standard is met. Further discussion?
All good.
So it's a simple, easy request. Katie?
Yeah.
Harold?
Yes.
Joe? Yes. Jane?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. That takes care of 90 Ridgeview. On to number 10, 140 Old Barn Road, map 179, parcel 17A. Petition of Paul and Dana Ferraro for a variance of the zoning regulations, section 5.2.4, to reduce the street line setback from 50 feet, currently 17.9 feet, proposing 17.9 feet. Permission to construct an addition, premises is R3 zone. I need a motion to approve.
So move.
Joe moves. I need a second.
Yes.
Harold seconds. Let's just get the hardship stated.
The whole house is in the front setback.
Literally the entire structure is, yeah, literally the entire structure is sitting inside the setback.
And then there's,
Then,
and behind it is.
Yes.
Where you can go back to.
correct. So they are impinged on all sides. Any further discussion? I think it's a, reasonable request, not overreaching or stretching in any real direction. I think they're keeping the house at 17 feet high or something like that. Katie?
Yes.
Harold?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
And I am a yes. And finally, 1135 Mill Hill Road, map 228, parcel 102, petition of Susan Earls and for a variance of the zoning regulations, section 6.3.8A, to allow a detached structure to be converted to an accessory apartment on a lot that does not meet the minimum lot area requirements of the applicable zoning district, and section 6.3.8C to increase the maximum allowable square footage for an accessory apartment from 40% the primary dwelling, proposing 53%. Permission to convert a loft and a detached garage to be an accessory apartment. Premises is AA zone. Need a motion to approve? Oh, I think Jane got that one. Katie, you want a second? Katie seconds. All right, stated hardship.
Existing size of existing buildings.
Yeah. Just the size of the existing,
So there's no new volumes being considered. It's all happening in.
correct, it's all interior, but it's
Characterization of the use, and that's all.
exactly. So it's a change, like you like to say, a change of use for the structure. I think it's reasonable, acceptable, and I haven't used my word today that I stole from Katie, so I'm gonna do it.
It's too
De minimis. Yes, it's de minimis. Come on,
I'm a-
you are a proofreader. Katie?
Yes.
Harold?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Jane?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Thank you all for your patience. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
We adjourn.
Thank you.
Need a motion to adjourn?
Oh, I don't think I do actually, but here, motion to adjourn. Joe, say yes.
Yes.
Seconded by me.
Always tell them to put a fake window.